Every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region. Man
is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Now you don't need to register nothing. We can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe in different criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year, the Trade and Investment Convention, happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days, and NAM Devco on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Bal Roop Group and Bmobile Business.
Maybe he landed here totally by coincidence. But if by chance he's admiring your fresh coat of Benjamin Moore soft sky blue, well, that's a pretty high compliment. Coming from an expert.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
best for your baby is at thebesttoys.com. From the best strollers, car seats, baby carriers, high chairs, booster seats, rockers, jumpers and bouncers, walkers, baby blankets, feeding accessories, bathtubs. Visit us in-store at Forces Flagship McLean. Shop online now at thebesttoys.com. Order via call or WhatsApp at 332-BABY. And remember, we have the best toys at the best prices.
Feeling drained? Struggling to keep up? It's time to take control of your wellness. On this episode of Wellness Unlocked, we're diving into the key nutrients your body needs for all-day energy and balance. With 100% or more of your daily essential vitamins, plus added chromium to support healthy blood sugar, this is complete wellness in a single soft gel. Join us as we uncover how small changes can make a big impact on your health. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
SM Group International Limited, your solutions partner for the latest innovations, brands and competent staff to meet your needs. We provide products and services in the following divisions: executive services, event rental and services, power and heavy equipment, construction and property management, food and beverage, aggregate and sales and distribution. Check out more on our products and services at www.smgrouptt.com. Contact us at 221-7445 or email at info@smgrouptt.com. We are SM Group International, your solutions partner.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist, and we are committed to making good private healthcare affordable.
For all your medical needs, including dental, radiology, laparoscopy, behavioral and mental health, along with many other services, contact us for more information at 235-5479.
Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
Every day, we communicate through stories. Stories of ourselves, our challenges, our goals, our experiences, and our aspirations. Storytelling is an art that we have mastered. WESN Film Studios comprises a collaborative team of experts with extensive industry experience locally, regionally, and internationally. The ability of your business to successfully communicate with your preferred audience depends on the strength of the stories you tell. Your vision should be communicated in a high-quality, professional, and creative way. From concept to post-production, advertising to film, multi-camera productions, live events, streaming, and virtual conferencing, we are WESN Film Studio. Let your own unique voice be heard and your vision realized. Call us today at 628-5835 for your next production.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
You You are watching Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Just give an overview of what exactly is that split arrangement.
Nah, you don't need to register nothing. You don't need, we can do that another time. But then it becomes a hit, and then everybody starts to want to claim.
The laws that predate many of the independent countries' constitutions are going to be those colonial laws.
We know there are an infinite amount of circumstances that would lead to a murder.
I have a great idea and I have a great concept, but until it's actually expressed, it does not become intellectual property.
Accomplishments or targets of a forensic accountant is to quantify what may have been lost.
We believe we defend criminals and we manipulated the law and we exploited the system.
A responsible journalist will reach out to the person who they have the information on for a comment.
WESN.
Good morning and welcome to AM Prime on WESN. I'm Naomi McNish.
And I am Jada McLeod. And it is a good morning.
It is.
It's a good morning. How are you doing this morning, Naomi?
I am good. I am happy to be here, as always.
Same, yeah. I feel like today it started off on a little bit of a damper, I'm not going to lie, because I was just so out of it. But then I remembered I was coming here to see all of you and to see Naomi's beautiful face. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'll be fine. But we're going to have a good show today, yeah? And not to spoil it, but you guys know what today is. So, we have something in store for you. So we just wanted to say thanks to the directors and the producers behind the scenes and everybody that helps to make this show possible. So we're going to start off with some updates, some news updates. So the first thing we wanted to sort of bring to you all would have been the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government, Khadija Amin, says a new memorandum of understanding agreement with India will bring cutting-edge technology and early warning systems to the country to help mitigate the effects of flooding. So we all know Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Trinidad Trinidad and Tobago a couple of days ago, to have multiple bilateral conversations with the government of Trinidad and Tobago. They had, I think, celebrations. He did a lot of things. He engaged in the culture so well. I love to see the videos and the pictures that came out. But outside of all of the culture and celebrations that they would have had, they had
a number of deals and
what they would call memorandums of understanding. It's not something that's set in stone. It's almost like a plan before the plan. But I thought it was a good start.
Yeah.
To what they were trying to do.
It almost gives us hope. Like it could, if they do come through, then I think a lot of what they listed would be very beneficial.
It would. As Minister Amin was saying here, technology about early warning systems in the country. We have a video that we'll queue up for you in a little bit, but I just found that addressing something like this, because I know it wasn't the main point of what they came here to speak about. It was just one of those things that came on a whim, right? So I'm really glad that this was something that they felt pertinent to speak about. But you can hear Minister Amin speak more about this in this video.
It was made at the Red House, not just with the visit of India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, but with the signing of 6 memoranda of understanding, including one that could reshape how Trinidad and Tobago responds to natural disasters. Minister of Rural Development and Local Government Khadija Amin hailed the MOUs as a critical step in the nation's fight against flooding and climate-related disasters.
And certainly, while the focus would have been on the MOUs to be signed today over the last couple of days, certainly in terms of our talks in the upcoming weeks and so on, I expect that Trinidad and Tobago could gain from learning technology from India. And one of the things that they have in one of the MOUs is an early warning system for flooding and disaster that they have shared with Trinidad and Tobago.
While her ministry was not one of those that directly signed an MOU with the government of India, Minister Amin said the opportunities and collaboration goes across ministries.
So, for instance, even though an MOU was not signed by me, there is one that involves early warning systems that falls under Homeland because it's ODPM. But I am very excited about it. Local government people are excited. In the rural areas, for instance, agro-processing, where you have agricultural areas and you really don't want crops staying on farmers' hands, agro-processing is very important. And so in rural development, and although it falls under agriculture, rural development is excited about the agro-processing plant.
Minister Amin said the agreement is also part of a broader vision for long-term development and resilience, welcoming the talks about a Caribbean-based forensic science center in Trinidad and Tobago.
And to me that will benefit Trinidad and Tobago in the long run, because they are not only talking about bringing laptops, for instance, giving 2,000 laptops as they are, but they are talking about investments, things that will contribute to the well-being of agriculture. When they speak about having the CARICOM Forensic Science Center located of all places in the Caribbean, here in Trinidad, you know, it speaks volumes in terms of long-term development and better life for Trinidad and Tobago.
And with the rainy season already in progress, the minister said her ministry is also looking at technology to prevent flooding.
So there are technologies available, and we also have to look at the cost factor of those technologies and how we incorporate the local economy into it in terms of creating local jobs, using local manufacturers and so on.
Minister Amin was speaking to TTT News following the joint session of Parliament on Friday. Sonolala, TTT News.
I personally love the idea of the implementation of technology to help with something like natural disasters. I feel like when I first was listening to Minister Amin, I knew that this is something other countries practice, but when I was first listening to Minister Amin, I was like, how are we going to use technology, flooding, natural disasters? How do those two things corroborate? I don't know if that made sense to you, because when I heard technology, but so the way I was thinking of it is when water meets electricity, sparks, bad. That's all I had a very elementary understanding of it, and I still do. But I'm really not necessarily really hoping, but I want this to be something that they do follow through on, because it'll be interesting to see how they can make this happen. And then she said that it can bring jobs, which is something that we would want. But I do think we have an unemployment rate that is, we have a high unemployment rate right now. So it would be a good thing, especially since, you know, they cut the TNTech jobs and what was it, URP jobs and all of those things. But yeah, what do you think when you first heard it?
It's exciting to see what comes out of it. Same as you, I have no idea what technology would look like to prevent flooding. So
somebody said here, advanced technologies like AI-powered flood forecasting. So I'm wondering if it's like one of those, forgive me for saying this, but like a thermometer type thing, where they're able to stick it in a particular part of the earth, and it's able to tell if something is going to happen, if the soil level is too high or too low or too moist or too dry, that it's going to cause some sort of flooding or something like that, so that they can better prepare. Or is it something that's going to tell you beep, 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 hurricane, beep, 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 flood, or something like that? I wonder what it would look like.
Yeah, no, I understand I understand what the technology would be like for hurricane prevention and to like warn us and things like that. I know, but the flooding, I would assume it's probably something where it would gauge how much rainfall, and probably versus the environment or the space. So
to protect the communities, like alert them so that they know, well, protect your crops, put this cage over this, make sure your animals are inside or in an enclosed space, something like that. It's interesting to see. And I think it seems feasible. I think we have the tools to power that on. And though she was saying that, Minister Amin, that is, she was saying that money, financial means maybe a little tough. Well, I guess that's what she was alluding to, maybe a little tough to get their hands on for this. And I'm hoping maybe India, Prime Minister Modi, this is something that they can also help with if they're lending their talents, not just their talents, but their the equipment to us. I think that would be a good follow through on blocking off our roads. But moving on, we wanted to stay on the topic of nature. Trinidad and Tobago's own public zoo, very own public zoo, the Emperor Valley Zoo. There's a video by Mr. Carrie Roberts, a fellow journalist over at TTT. He did this really nice take on the Emperor Valley Zoo, a video just for you to watch, to know more about it, know more about the history of it and where it is now. So we can take a look at this video.
The Emperor Valley Zoo has long been a favorite for school excursions and personal excursions. I remember when I was in school, I came to an excursion at the Emperor Valley Zoo and it was quite the time. Now being back here after so many years, it's definitely generating feelings of nostalgia. I cannot wait to see what has changed over the years and what the Emperor Valley Zoo has to offer today.
First opened in 1952, it is still the only public zoo in Trinidad and Tobago and was built on a 7.2-acre plot of land north of the Queen's Park Savannah. It was named after the morpho butterfly, better known as the emperor butterfly, that big blue butterfly on their sign. Today, it is not just a display corral for animals to be made a spectacle of, it serves a broader purpose. Founded on the tenets of preservation, protection, and education, the zoo does more than provide tours for school outings, but trust me, they are great at that too. When it comes to preservation, the zoo often engages in animal rescues. They care for and often nurse animals that are sick, injured, or abused back to health. When needed, they even breed certain species. These sometimes include rare and elusive species that appear on international endangered lists. The black market animal trade sometimes finds its way to our shores, as we were informed by a zoo staffer. Confiscated animals are left in the care of the zoo, as it is the only facility capable in the country. He added that the public seldom understands how much the zoo does to protect wildlife.
We have 5 jaguars. We have 2 on display here. We have 1 across.
Zoo staff have a wealth of knowledge and are there to answer any questions visitors may have. They also conduct tours that adds education to the experience, making it all the more valuable, especially for the budding minds of school children. We can all agree that learning outside the classroom is a good thing. The vast majority of the animals at the zoo are indigenous to Trinidad and Tobago, and that is by design. They believe in the importance of teaching about our local fauna. Feeding so many animals is another story. A fun fact shared by zoo staff was that there are numerous fruiting trees on the compound that they use to feed some of the herbivores. They added that there is also an abundance of flowering plants to feed and attract hummingbirds and butterflies. If that isn't what you call sustainable, I don't know what is. There are some animals not indigenous to the Caribbean at the zoo as well. Some of these were also rescues, some were brought in, while some were successfully bred at the zoo. One thing is sure though, they tend to be the stars of the show. The visit to the zoo is truly a rich experience with much to see and much to learn. Added to everything on offer here, there's even a gift shop where you can grab a souvenir to remember your visit by. But something tells me that it will not be one soon forgotten. I'm Carrie Roberts, giving you a glimpse into the paradise we have right here.
That was nice. So when last have you been to the zoo?
Oh my word, Naomi. Okay, maybe like 2023, 2022. So was that like, what, 2-3 years ago? Let's go 3 years ago. Yeah, and it wasn't honestly, it wasn't a particularly great visit. I stayed for all of 20 minutes and then left.
Wow.
What about you?
Honestly, I have not been to the zoo in probably over 10 years.
Okay, I thought I was bad.
No,
wow.
it's been a long time. When they got all the new animals, the kangaroos, the giraffes.
Were you there in the age of Melman when the Penguins of Madagascar movie came out? No, really?
I did not go to the zoo to see anything. I have not. That's how long I haven't been to the zoo.
Wow,
I haven't seen any penguins.
And the other, not the penguins, the giraffes. They called
not the giraffes. Nothing.
Really, they used to it's so God. They were so tall. They are well. I think they're still there.
I see them like because you can see them when you if you're like going up Chancellor, you can kind of look and you see the giraffes. That's the only way I've seen them. But I have not been to the zoo since all those new animals.
There's this really cute otter. And then if I go, I usually go to see that otter. I don't know. He's so lively. I don't know his name. I know somebody would know the name and can let us know. But that otter, he's so cute. Otters are actually really like not dangerous animals, but they're really what's the word I'm looking for that I can't say on air right now. But they're really cool animals. They look out for themselves. Yeah, and they're small, but they know they're mighty. And then the snake exhibit is also something I make sure to make a stop at. I think that's so cool. Don't let Mr. Mead know that, though.
I'm not going to say you who are so afraid of snakes. Interesting.
No, because those snakes are in an enclosure away from me. And then it's like they have this nice, cool, dark lighting. I guess it's to kind of keep the snakes able to sleep or something like that. But when you walk through, it's nice, cool, and it's,
Yeah.
There's AC as well in other parts of the exhibit, so everybody wants to take a stop in there. And then there's when you want to stop for refreshments, they make a really nice slushy, really mean slushy. I like the slushies. We should go sometime.
Yeah, no, I definitely need to go again. I think it's a little embarrassing that I have not been there in over 10 years. Yeah, and it's probably more. That's just
what you're willing to say on camera.
Yeah, but I understand too. They do plan on updating the zoo further, and maybe I'll wait for that. Maybe I'll wait for that upgrade and expansion on the zoo. This was something that was announced by Minister of Agriculture Ravi Ratiram about a month ago. So haven't heard anything since that announcement, but I would assume that's still going to happen.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Because I do like the zoo. I mean, again, it's our only public zoo, so we have to preserve it. One thing I wanted to talk about was a story. I hope that this is actually true and it's not something I made up in my mind. But at one point in time, we had, it wasn't an alligator or crocodile. At one point in time, I think we had. It wasn't a caiman, it was like I think it was a crocodile. And there used to be this bridge you had to walk over, and the crocodile was in the water under it. Cool fella. He never used to do anything, but there was one time I was walking across the bridge. I almost fell in. And I remember, I mean, it was secure, but I was a child and it was, I didn't have balance. I know what balance was. But I almost fell in, or at least I felt like I almost fell in. And I just remember that was one of my definitive moments of my life when I was a child. I was telling everybody, I almost fell into the crocodile enclosure. I survived the crocodile attack. There was no crocodile attack. But that's something as a child I used to brag about, because I just remember just being this one moment in time where I was like, I had a near-death experience. But the thing is, I think even if I fell into the enclosure, the crocodile probably was going to leave me alone, because he was such a cool dude. He never used to do anything. He would eat and he would swim, and he would eat and he would swim, and he was just cool. But that even brings to question animal conservation.
Yeah.
Because some people would say the crocodile is supposed to be doing more than that. In the wild, they may be doing something more. So, are zoos conservationist?
That's a very controversial conversation. But I do believe despite, I may not 100% agree with zoos, because obviously you have these animals in captivity and that's not always good. But if you look on the other side of it, there's the purpose of education, you know, and allowing animals to, especially animals who are about to be extinct.
This is his protection.
Just like in the video, he said that our zoo, we even do breeding, animal breeding to, you know, help the certain species.
There's something else, and I know I was planning to ask Mr. Mead about this, but whether or not the animals that we have in the zoo, is that they wouldn't survive in the wild? Is it that they need to be rehabilitated and then release them, or is it where if it's a bird, their wings are clipped or something like that, and they have to be under human care?
I don't believe that the animals have to be in captivity. They just are, you know, because the zoo is not going to purchase a sick animal, because what if they don't survive, right? So
it's hard to reconcile that, you know, personally. Because I think as a kid and as I grew up, I kind of just held onto the thought that, you know, these animals wouldn't survive any other way. So, I mean, it brings I mean, you would think that people who work at a zoo, who own a zoo, would be wildlife protectionists.
It's really, it's very, it's the thought of it, it could be a little difficult for some people, but when you look at just what life is, I mean, that's part of it, you know, so it's something that, because some of these animals, some people wouldn't, if it was not in the zoo, some people would have never seen any of these animals in their entire life, right? So that's the whole point of I think, why zoos are important to us. It may not be good for the animal 100%, but, you know, this is...
I mean, where else was I going to see an otter up close?
Exactly. And I think once the enclosures are... that's why the zoo has certain rules and guidelines for, you know, proper care of the animals. And I think once the enclosures are big enough, once they feed the animals what they're supposed to be getting for proper nutrients and a good amount of exercise, I think it's okay. You know, and sometimes, especially an animal, most of the animals in the zoo were born in captivity. Exactly. So that's all they know. So it's not like we're doing the animal some sort of wickedness. Yeah, that's what they know, and to them, that's, you know, that's all they know.
I know sometimes on one of our Wild Wednesdays, we were talking about imprinting, when animals imprint onto humans, because they're basically born with the human, so they think that the human is now, they're one of the humans. You know, they think they're going to grow into being that. So I'm wondering if it's a serious case of imprinting with most of these animals, if because they're born in human captivity or in human care, they just wouldn't, and as the point I was trying to make earlier, is that they just wouldn't survive out in the wild because they weren't taught to hone these skills.
Do you remember Madagascar? I think that's a perfect example. Yeah. I mean, when the animals escaped.
Yeah. I just remembered,
Yeah, they when you compare them to the wild animals, they were very much different. They could not survive. They could not do a lot of what the wild animals were doing. They were thinking that, you know, they're going to get steak dinners. They didn't realize they had to hunt
for the steak
for their dinner. So, I mean, Madagascar is a perfect example of if you were to take an animal out of the zoo and place them in their natural habitat in the wild, what's going to happen?
Yeah. Would their instincts kick in?
No. Well, no.
We may not know, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to stay...
Actually, before I saw this, with the expansion project of the Emperor Valley Zoo, the minister had listed what some of the plans include, and I found this was so interesting. It's going to include a cinema/theater.
How cool!
An ice cream parlor, a cutter's bar, wine/coffee shop, restaurant, exhibition center, a conference/meeting room, or rooms, offices, an information center, shops and kiosks, a walk-through aquarium, and an amphitheater, and a play area for children. So those are plans for the updated zoo. And well, that project is already exceeding $56 million. Okay. But I think that's interesting because, okay, so the last time I was at the zoo, they had an aquarium or a fish. It was like a sea creature exhibition. But I heard that's not there anymore.
I don't think so.
Yeah, but that's like how long ago I was there. Like I remember there was a part of the zoo where it was just this little building, and in there had a lot of fish tanks and all these different.
There was one with piranhas. I remember that. There's
I can't remember what type of fishes were there, but but from my memory, it was a lot of little fishes that you can buy in a pet shop.
Go back there.
Yeah, that was like how long ago. So this is nice, like to have a walk-through aquarium. Really nice. That will definitely and all these little things, you know, like
the play area,
the restaurant, a bar, a cutter's bar.
I mean, and all those things will also help with jobs, which is what this government has promised to give us. So, yeah, I mean, I urge them on in this regard, where the money is going to come from for the project. But I know that they are more than capable to handle themselves, make it happen. So we're staying on topic, we're staying on local news. And I know SCA happened, I want to say about 4 to 5 days ago.
Results,
SCA results came out 4 to 5 days ago. I wanted to sort of big up, if you will allow me colloquial language, big up the 5 students who were at the top of the secondary entrance examinations. In no particular order, there was Miss Ashlyn Ramkisoon from Jordan Hill Presbyterian Primary School, Sandhya Maharaj from Mackinac Government Primary School, Kailash Dial Singh from Exchange Presbyterian Primary School, Xavier Tallisford is a private candidate, but you may say he was homeschooled, but he still managed to top. And Mr. Nicholas Dolly, who attended Chagonas Government Primary School and as well is on the autism spectrum. Wow. How beautiful. Wow. So we saw a lot of perseverance in the top students this time around because, I mean, and let's be honest, SCA is hard, okay? I am older now, a couple years have passed and I'm still traumatized, okay? SCA is hard. And the fact that these students put their all into this and they were rewarded in such a grand way, I think is a beautiful thing and something that we should celebrate. But even though we are celebrating what these students would have done, and I mean, it's a good thing and we give them kudos, but SCA comes with many different challenges and there's many controversial opinions on SCA. In fact, there's been multiple debates on it in the House of Parliament, even within the Youth Parliament, there's been many debates on the ethics of SCA. If it's something that we must do. What does it essentially test? So we were actually having a conversation off air a couple of moments ago about the controversial talks surrounding the secondary entrance examinations. Whether or not it's something that, I mean, my opinion would be, I would just put a question out there, is it something that's good for a student's mental health? Dun, 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 dun.
I have my few opinions on that, honestly. I think that SCA, okay, so you said before, do we need SCA? What does it actually test, right? And it's not to say we need it, but it helps. It helps in terms of having a way to, or how to put it? Okay, it's a entrance exam, right? It's a placement exam,
exactly, yeah.
Right? It's not to test just your child's capabilities or like decide how smart they are. That's not what it is. It's literally just a placement exam. You do an exam, and based on your scores, you get placed in a school to further your education. If it doesn't have the exam, then how else are we going to place students in secondary schools?
I understand where you're
Because
coming from.
we also have to consider the secondary schools have certain standards. They have certain, well, that's not good standards, right? Which is what we know, because if everybody was to apply, there was no exam. And in primary school, you have to go and apply for secondary school, right? Like you do a university,
yeah.
right? Imagine the amount of paperwork. Right? Imagine the amount of just, you don't get in, you have to apply to 3 and 4, you still don't get in, then what, right? So it's more complicated to do it that way than, okay, because even with a university, you have to sit at SATs if you want to go and study abroad, right? That is also a type of placement exam.
No, it is, and
Right?
I would agree. But the question for me is, when you test in the SAT exams, you're 18, maybe 17, 18, you may be able to handle the mental stress that comes with that. You're taking that on face up. You don't have to go to university. You choose to go to university. But secondary school, it's mandatory. And
Not necessarily, you know, there are students who do not do SE and they still, I mean, it's mandatory if you're going into a secondary school, a public school or a board school sometimes, right? But
I understand where you're coming from, and to an extent I do agree, because what else would you do? And I think what really gets me, or what really gets on my nerves about the whole process, is the fact that you have to choose schools. I think it's because we rank schools. That's where my issue comes in. Because if every student needs to find a school, all schools should be to the same standard, and I don't think it's idealistic to say that.
You can't say all schools would be to the same standard, because not all students are on the same level.
The standards, there should be a, what's the word I'm looking for, a base standard, right?
There is.
So,
Okay,
some schools have
that's why you have your first, second, third, and fourth choice, right? In your first, second, third, and fourth choice, it's your first choice is if you were to get what is the highest mark that you can possibly get, that will send you to your first choice. Then what is your lowest mark based on it has to be personal. That's why each student has 4 choices. What is the lowest mark that you think you would get? That's your 4th choice.
And I get
anything outside of that is a zone school.
But what about the students who, okay, I can't agree with the ranking system in that way, because a student could be exceptionally smart and they've cruised their way through all the way up to standard 5, but then they're not good with examinations and they get zoned to a school that wasn't in any of their choices, and they're like, how did this happen? Maybe they're just not good at sitting an exam. So I think there's other things that we have to prepare students for as well. We shouldn't put everything on this test. I think when I was doing SCA, there was also another part of the exam. There's the whole creative writing. I think we did some dance or some sort of extracurricular activity, drama or something like that. And those things counted towards, because it was supposed to be more well-rounded. I don't think they do those things anymore. But I think that was an attempt to make SCA a little bit more well-rounded, because, I mean, I get it. It is a placement exam. It needs to happen. But the way in which they've gone about it, putting the emphasis on just the scores that you make, and the scores correlate with whatever rank, and then even not all the time. Because sometimes you make the 96, 97, 98, and you want to go to some top school, some convent, if you wish, to say that. And then you get zoned to an area that you live in, and it's, how did that happen? That happens way too many times to count.
But that is not because of the students. And based on what you're saying, if a student is doing really well or is very brilliant and they're just not good with exams, which I don't necessarily agree with, because the whole point, like your 5 years or 6 years prior in primary school prepares you for this SCA examination, because you have end of term, national test. I don't know what the names for it now, but you have all these exams at the end of every term. You have midterm exams, you have all these different tests that you get throughout your 6 years or 7 years in primary school to prepare you for this. Because I remember in primary school, national test, what? National test was like you have to do good in national test. It was a lot of pressure as well. That was like they were preparing us mentally for this essay examination. Now, obviously, when the essay examination comes around, the vibe is different. It will feel different for the student because you know, okay, this is it. I don't have any more fails. It's either it's I pass this or I do it again, or I don't get the school I want. Like, this is it. So that is where the pressure comes in. But that is why as parents or as teachers or, you know, guardians, we have to constantly instill throughout the years, like, mentally prepare the child. When that day comes, know you are ready. When that day comes, you've done all this for that, and prepare your child. Like, I think it's constant conversations and just allowing them to see that they are capable, that they can do it, that they've done it however many times before. You know, all that is part of it because, yeah, you have to do it.
I have two things to say on that. And in the beginning, I was like, I disagree, but as you were getting down to the end of your statement, I was like, okay, I understand where she's coming from, and I do agree. So two things I have to say on that is, the students who, and I will speak to any student who's out there, maybe on vacation and listening, you are brilliant in whatever ways that you're brilliant. You have things that you are good at, some things that you're bad at, some things you need to work on. Okay, but you are a brilliant student. And this is coming from someone who, I used to tutor students for SCA. Every child is brilliant. You know what you're doing. Yes, there are tests that you have to pass. Some students, honestly, they just don't do well at the test. And I think this is a different way of judging brilliance, because when you sit down with them and you have a conversation with them and you go through the material with them outside of writing on paper or outside of hey, what is this, what is this, they're able to speak to you and they're able to get it immediately. They're able to teach you things sometimes as well because they reason it out a different way. But the moment you put them under a timer and you tell them structurally, what is this, A, B, C, what is this, A, B, C, they blank. I don't know why. It may be anxiety, it may be that maybe they didn't fully grasp the material and they can't understand it in the way that you're asking them. But there are different things that may contribute to a child not doing well in examinations. So I know that there's a number of students that I personally taught and that I went to school with who just couldn't, when it came to exams. I would have to take them out of the examination mode or examination room and speak to them separately and give them extra time. Those things would happen. So if that is something that you are struggling with, we understand. It happens, and work at it. Give yourself more grace, give yourself more time, and you will get there.
And I just want to say one more thing too. Based on that, and I agree, and that is why when assessing as the how students did during this SCA examination 2025, we need to tailor how we are going to adjust or improve or help these students, especially the ones who are set to resit, right? Because there are a number of students who are set to resit this examination, and right now the government is talking about it, that there are still too many students that are not passing.
6,000 students scored less than 50% on the SCA examination.
Yeah.
They noticed a concerning learning gap among primary school students and secondary school students.
Yes, and that has to be a product of, something not working. Something in the system is not working.
I think there's stuff way too much into that curriculum, personally.
Yeah.
That they have to cover. Is that you give them more time, give them more structure, or give them less things to cover, and let maybe secondary school handle it. But then secondary school is its own beast on its own. So, because they need to know certain things before they get there. So it's difficult to understand, but there are some things that they can cut down on that curriculum, personally, because then even though they give the curriculum, not all teachers teach to the curriculum. So the student may know a version of what it is they're trying to teach them, what it is they need to know for the examination, but when they get to the examination, if they don't do it that exact same way, they're just not prepared for the exam. And I've seen it many different times. But I think for SCA, a lot of the times, students just need confidence. I've noticed that a lot of them just need a backing. Sometimes the parents are too busy, sometimes the parents are just not around, or the parents don't know how to inspire that kind of life into their child. Because it takes work. It takes work.
It takes work and it takes practice, because a lot of the times, especially something like math is consistent practice.
Yep.
Math is not something that you can open a book and read about. Like math is practice. You know, you have to do questions over and over, problem solving, these things, that's how you do better. So all of that, I mean, we have to do better for our students, for our children, and really push them.
And most importantly, listen to the students who recently sat SCA. If you're an adult or older, have a conversation with someone in your family that recently sat SCA. Find out what it was like for them, and don't just let them say, yeah, it was okay. Really get into the nitty-gritty of how it is that they felt about the examination. Because I think it's important to listen to the students that just went through it. And I know we all did, but the ones who are going through it right now, we need to fix it from them for the next generation. Because it does need some fixing. It does. But from where we are right now, SCA needs to stand. I think that's where we can agree. SCA needs to stand. It's important. And as Nimi rightfully said, it's a placement exam. It needs to stand. But maybe not in the way that it's standing right now. So they're leaving. It's not properly.
But I think, and we could also have a good conversation about this, because I was looking at a video recently about, it was a woman, and she was explaining the process, how they place students in schools, because I think a lot of people don't understand how that process works, right? And she went in, she didn't go into detail because she said it's very, it's a lot to get into. So I think that's something that we could get into and just understand, as you would have said before, there are students who do pass and they get in the 90s, but they still get zoned. Yeah. Why is that, right? Because even when I sat SCA, I remember there were students who got higher than me and they got zoned. Now, as a child, I 100% understood why, but I remember I couldn't talk about it because it was a little, some people, would judge. Yeah. And all of this is part of, the discussion as to what really goes on, with these SCA placements, right? And I wouldn't get into my personal story, but when we do have that discussion, maybe I would. So
there's nothing to talk about. What are ways they could look at this? Because again, there's problems, especially when it comes to corruption, especially when it comes to placements. Zoning is a big thing. I was so scared of zoning. As somebody that's from one of those areas, I was extremely scared of being zoned. Thankfully, I wasn't, but I know many people who were.
Yeah,
and that's heartbreaking.
And it's not a nice feeling, especially when you look at your scores and you're like, but how? Because you're thinking you get zoned when you don't pass, or you got a really, really low mark, but that's simply not true. That's true in one hand, yes, but you can also get zoned when the schools are filled. If all of your choices are filled, they will zone you. So that's just like it's sad, and it's kind of probably needs adjusting. But yes, we will have discussions on that. I do know we have to go to a quick break.
Yeah.
Right, so when we come back, we have Wild Wednesday.
Wild Wednesday, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year. The Trade and Investment Convention, happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days, and NAM Devco on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Bal Roop Group and Bmobile Business.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lips?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the
not
game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title, it's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God, so we kind of have to stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's being the victim,
right,
or the man who's being the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI, worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
Welcome back to AM Prime. So today is a Wild Wednesdays on WESN. All right, so we have joining us as always Mr. Ricardo Mead of the El Socorro Wildlife Conservation Center. Center for Conservation. So he's joining us via Zoom.
Okay, I always have to read his shirt and I'm always looking across. The El Socorro Center for Wildlife Conservation.
What did I say?
You got it. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mead. And good morning to the turtle behind you. How are you doing this morning?
I am doing kind of all right. Just had a little technical difficulties called
Kinda alrightish. You always introduce a new word or phrase to me. Kinda alrightish. What does that mean? Is that in the English dictionary?
Yeah. You got to go in the new creative Trinibonics dictionary for that one.
I love that.
Right? Yeah.
Kinda okay.
You know, find ways of mixing it up and shifting it around to express ourselves. So language is a thing that's constantly evolving as we try to communicate more effectively.
That's what Trini's are known for.
Yep. New words, you can't fight it. It's gonna happen. Don't fight it at all. Accept it. That's the reality that we live in.
That's how we call tricky Dalians.
You're from Barbados or what? Anyway, so I had a bit of a technical issue last night with my vehicle. It shut down. So no start this morning. So no come to tongue. But I'm zooming into you ladies from right here at home. You know this work at home thing This work at home thing ain't too bad.
Don't get accustomed. We need you in studio.
Stan's got a point. Work from home.
We need you in studio.
But now I will have to now bring lots and lots and lots more animals in my home. So right now, in my home, okay, beside today's guest, which you will see in a moment, in my home, I'm sitting here, basically at my desk, looking around, and my home acts as an ICU, intensive care unit for animals that need to be fed quite often. So we have baby birds, and they need to be fed 6 times a day. So from 6 to 6, they need to be fed just about every 2 hours. Sometimes it goes as much as 8 times a day. So here are the list of animals that I have in my home. You guys ready?
Yeah.
I have 2 tropical screech owls, juvenile. I have 1 pygmy owl, juvenile. I have 1 striped cuckoo, juvenile. I have 2 bare-eyed thrush or big-eye grieve, juvenile. I have, oh look, yet another pygmy owl, sub-adult. Then I have, which was picked up yesterday, a magnificent bird. And I do not kid you when I say it's a magnificent bird. The bird is so magnificent, actually, that's her name. She's a magnificent frigate bird that came all the way from Cedrus yesterday. I was up at 3 o'clock this morning. I got her to eat some fish. I got some fluids down her. And I'm going to put a call out because we're going to have to do some special procedures on her later on. She was found just sitting on the beach. And it turns out, they thought it was a broken wing or something, but it turns out that she is covered in oil. Oil. Wow. So it's going to be a long week for this bird as we attempt to de-oil her, to get her feathers back to the beautiful nature that they were, and then eventually get her back in the wild. But she is just sticky and covered in oil.
You could probably use, what is it? You can probably use Dawn. I remember when Dawn started advertising, they showed, Dawn did an advertisement of animals on the beach, birds specifically, and ducks covered in oil. And they used the Dawn dish soap to wash the animals, and their feathers came back all fluffy and nice after one wash. So.
Well, the truth is, Dawn does work. It is the approved cleaning agent for oiled wildlife. So I teach an oiled wildlife volunteer training course that prepares volunteers to be ready in case there is an oil spill. And we had one of our responses. We had about 3 or 4 responses. Our largest response thus far was the oil spill in the Gulf of Paria, and that was 2019 or 2020? Yeah, 2019, 2020, somewhere around there. And we took in 27 pelicans, and we were able to release 23 of them. 23. Now, the international standard for oil wildlife in terms of releasability or release animals is 5%.
Wow,
we're
that's
up
good.
to almost 89% with that number. We did really, really amazing. We had volunteers who got their training before, because this is a course that I do every year, and people come in and they learn. So while Dawn is the agent for cleaning wildlife, the approved agent, it cannot be done in one step. It cannot be done by amateurs. You have to be trained. Dawn is so strong, excuse me, that you can actually damage the animal.
Wow, okay.
It is strong. On the bottle it says it's 10 times stronger than the nearest dishwashing liquid. So just imagine something that strong on the skin of a bird, which is very thin and has thin membranes that hold the feathers in place. So you would look like you got the feathers or the oil off. It seems all nice and well and good. And then the bird flies off, and by the next day, you have a bald bird running around because all the feathers will drop out as the skin burns and becomes irritated by the strength of the Dawn. When we clean a bird, for example, it goes through several stages, with the first stage being applying oil to the bird. Sounds ironic, huh? We have a bird that's covered in oil, and the first thing we do is cover it with warm oil. Right? So we use warm canola oil, not just any oil. We've tried other oils when we couldn't get canola oil. It does not work. Canola oil, warm, rubbed into the animal and then removed in a particular way. And then after that, we start the cleaning process now with the Dawn. And maximum strength that we ever use is 10%. So we calculate for the gallons of water that we put in the animal in the tubs, 10%. Then the next wash goes to 8%. Then the next wash goes to 5%. Then the last wash is 3%. And then the ultimate cleansing now is 0% fresh water. The water has to be of a particular pressure and a particular temperature. So it is a long, complicated, difficult process. Sometimes we spend 5 or 6 hours on one animal. So it's very stressful for the people, and it's very stressful for the animal. So we have to ensure that the animal can go through that and come out at the end of the wash line, as we call it, clean, okay, or semi-clean, but alive. That's the most important thing. And if at any point in time during that wash process from tub to tub, the animal seems to be stressed out or we seem to be losing it because we have to monitor it completely, the process must stop immediately. The animal put back into its enclosure and allowed to de-stress and calm down, possibly get fluids, possibly some vitamins, possibly some nutrients, and then when it's ready and stable, we can continue the process. That can take anywhere from an hour, a day, or a week. So it's a lot of monitoring because these animals are in a crisis mode. It's really, really bad what's going on. So sometime this evening we're going to have a call out, and some of our best and more experienced volunteers, and well, some of the new ones are going to come out also, and we're going to work on this bird, this magnificent frigate bird. This bird's wingspan is just about 6 feet. It is an amazing bird. These are the big W-looking birds you see soaring there, seashores and so on. These birds are amazing. And it's like we were given another chance because last week we got one from Tobago. This one from Tobago, now remember I told you this bird, the wingspan is about 6 feet. But this bird from Tobago, when it came in, it weighed as much as an adult pigeon.
Wow.
That's how light and emaciated it was. And I knew right away once I picked it up, I said, my goodness, this bird has probably a 5% chance. It fought for a day, we gave it fluid, we gave it emergency food, we gave it all that we could. But the bird's body, he just had no muscle mass whatsoever. And it was, on a scale of 1 to 5, it was probably a 0.5. It was in a bad way. So she passed, sadly, despite the efforts to bring it down from Tobago. Thanks to all the people who teamed up and tried to make it happen. We got to me, picked it up at the airport, but it was just so bad. The sad part about it is this bird was on the ground being seen by people for 3 days before this person from Trinidad who was up there just getting a little bit of sun and sand saw the bird and they reacted immediately. So what that says to me is that people in the public are still showing apathy and don't care-ism when it comes to our wildlife. They don't care. They don't care, okay? Even if they had just reported it, you can't do anything, but I saw a bird down. This is a big bird and it's on the beach here and there. Somebody would react. Somebody would reach out. Or even just put a picture up on Facebook. Somebody would reach out. But the bird sat there in the same spot for 3 days. So my estimate, in total, it probably did not eat or drink water for about 6 days.
Wow.
So that's a hard comeback. And it did not. So this one is almost like a week later, given a second chance. That's what it's like. I'm giving another chance at it. Another bite at the apple, as it were. This female is in much better body condition. And but the oil is toxic. It's on her skin, it's on her feathers. She cannot fly. She is stressed out. Happy that at 3 o'clock this morning she ate some fish, got some fluids in her. We had x-rays done at our participating provider. And it turns out that there's some anomalies with her joints and so on, which may have occurred because of the damage based on the oil, but nothing broken, nothing fractured, no apparent soft tissue damage. So she should be good once we get her cleaned reasonably fast and stress-free. She has an appetite and she has attitude. She was trying to kill me this morning. So I'm glad I survived, and I'm glad that she's surviving right now.
I was trying to see if we could get a picture up of the bird, so I sent it, so hopefully we can get that up shortly.
Yes, it's all good.
But actually there is a red thing under its beak.
Right. That would be a male. A male in breeding plumage, he would blow up that big like crop his throat and to attract the ladies. Like the grouse. There's a bird that's very popular in America. You know, they show it on television all the time. He blows up his chest. It's blue, and he struts around doing his wiggle and so on like that. That's a grouse. I think it's a blue-throated grouse or so on. Yeah, I stand to be corrected. I am not familiar with all the birds in the world, especially ones that are not local. But the frigate, that's his breeding plumage. So when you see that bright red, that's a male in plumage. This one has a white head, although it's tarnished with the black oil, so we know it's a female. So all the time you see the white head, it's a female. The male is usually black, and when he's ready to breed and show off and strut for the ladies, he blows up that big red throat and shows off himself.
Wow.
Okay? So one day, we hope that she makes it. I believe she will, with the efforts that I know is going to come out today. We will feature this bird, but we're going to have to do it from the center because, like I said, she is big. And once she gets better, we're going to put her in a big enclosure, and she's going to be spreading those amazing wings. And I'll probably do the zoom from inside there so you get an idea what another one of our amazing birds as we close up on our 500. Remember, I'm putting the idea out there. Talk to those in authority. We're going to write the letters and send the email. When we hit the official count of 500 birds this year, I believe it's going to happen this year, we should commemorate that momentous occasion by having a commemorative note, a $500 bill, a $500 coin, what have you. You guys at Central Bank, you all decide that. But this must be commemorated, and it should be commemorated in a significant way, in a way that will last for many, many years and give us pride here in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as give us the opportunities to earn more foreign exchange, as birders from all over the world want to come here to see close to 500 birds on these tiny little rocks that we call our home, Trinidad and Tobago.
And it will give us visibility locally as well. People who just don't know about anything to do with wildlife, they'll look into it now because now it affects them on a national level. So, yeah. But I think we also have a photo up. We can get a photo up.
Yeah, we have the photo up of the bird. That's a male bird.
Yeah.
That's a male, magnificent frigate bird.
That's so
to
cute.
See them, you hardly see them flying. You usually see them just soaring on the thermals up high. You hardly see their wings flap. They have such a large coverage with those wings that once they're up there, they just soar. So you cannot confuse them with a black vulture or a hobo, as other trainees like to call it, because of the shape of the wings, with the pointy ends, and it looks like a big W up there. And they fly sometimes way higher than the vultures, and they're just soaring around up there near the coastal area. Sometimes you get them inland also. But they're just amazing.
When you see, like, I know there are these birds that they soar really, really high in the sky, and people always say those are covos, and they just circle in the sky. Are those covos, or are those the frigate birds?
Well, very easy to tell the difference because
they're not flapping, they're just soaring.
Right? Yeah. Also, black vultures also soar on the thermal, the black vulture and the turkey vulture. But this particular bird has a very long tail that is like a split. So it has like a forked tail, and it has a W wing pattern, very pronounced and very pointy, very long wings. These birds are huge.
Yeah, they look like pterodactyls.
You got it. There you go. Somebody was watching a Jurassic Park. Hey, you want to see the new movie yet?
No, I haven't seen it yet. I just know.
You know what? I think if I get off early today and I'm not too sleepy, I'll go see it.
Yeah, it looks good.
That's my tradition. I'm so tired. I get in the movie theater. It's nice and cool. I settle into those comfortable seats and I sleep through the entire thing.
The way it happens. Yeah. But Mr. Mean, what animal do you have to show us today?
But you're not seeing his little head there? You just kind of like pop it up? No. So that's what they kind of do.
It's a caiman.
Here we go.
He looks like this character from it's a character from a Disney game. Oh my gosh.
The crocodile game?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
For today, this guy is Wally.
Wally.
Although he's not a gator. All right, he's a caiman, a spectacled caiman.
Was he found in a wall?
Well, I should then call him Poolie. He was found in someone's swimming pool.
Oh.
Yep, he was down south, just swimming around in people's swimming pool, enjoying it. So this is one of the cleanest caimans you will ever come across. I guarantee you. He is clean.
That is scary.
You know, so fresh and so clean. Yeah. They normally have a smell. This guy, nothing. He is amazingly clean. Because he spent almost 2 hours at least. That's when they came home and saw him swimming around in that pool. And I had to dive in and use the catch pole and grab him. But he is a beauty. He's a beautiful guy. I'm going to put him in front of me so make sure that we can see him. I think his head is going to get cut off as I go higher. But there we go. There he is. He is a beautiful, beautiful animal right there, right? So he's just about 29 inches long. There we go. You see his face? There's his face. There you go. You can put on the camera now. Okay, he's gonna try and eat me. He's trying to walk away. Up, there we go. Yeah, that power in his body. Right there. He's like, I'm not for this camera life. Okay, paparazzi, get lost. So
wow.
Spectacle caiman, one of the two types of caiman. They say three, but we're not sure. They claim that there's a black caiman in Trinidad. I thought I saw one until I found one and I caught one, and it turned out to be a very, very dirty caiman.
Spectacles.
Just a regular spectacle caiman. He was dirty, full of oil and muck and gunk. So it appeared to be a black caiman. The black caimans are usually a bit bigger than the spectacle, who can top out at about 6 feet for a big female. So they're not too big, you know. But you know, in Trinidad we call everything alligator. Is an alligator. Is an alligator. You know. So they're all in the crocodilian family. So there are about 5 different types. And in this part of the world, we have normally alligator, the American alligator. We have the spectacle caiman. We have the dwarf caiman, which exists here in Trinidad also. And now there's the American crocodile also. That's also in South America. So we have a few crocodilian species in this part of the world. And in Trinidad, we have spectacle caiman. Also because he looks like he's kind of wearing glasses. You see the little ridge in the glasses and his eyes there. Spectacle caiman and the dwarf caiman, which is even more pronounced, but it doesn't get, I think, more than about 38 inches. So these are the people in our neighborhood, in our neighborhood, in our neighborhood. And the key thing is, they are not necessary to freak out and try to hurt them. I mean, this family was terrified because, you know, the kids were just about to go in the pool and then there's something swimming in there, you know. It was like,
I know, I would be traumatized. No, I don't know what I would want to go in the pool for a long time. A long time, because how would he have gotten in? He would have crawled in, or he would have gotten in from like the filtration system or
well, they have a beautiful property and walled off by beautiful hedges and trees from the roads and so on like that there. So they're almost in their own world there. And there would be a large drain somewhere nearby, and he would have come sauntering out of there, seen their property, and like, wow, look at that lovely jungle setting, crawled into the yard, across the lawn, across the deck, and into the pool. Just like that. And once he got in, he wouldn't be able to get out. He's a kind of small guy. You know, it's like a normal thing. You know, in Florida, you wake up, you go outside in the morning, and you see an alligator in your pool.
How long?
Sort of
so you said he was under the water for 2 hours. So how long can he hold his breath or breathe underwater?
Depends on their body activity level, but they can hold their breath for about 20 minutes sometimes. When they're very relaxed, they can hold their breath for as much as 20 minutes.
So how he managed 2 hours?
So he was breathing
Well, he was in the pool. All he had to do was just literally go down, comes up. Now notice something on him there. There's people understand here. So I'm just gonna hold him strong in one hand here. His eyes and his nostril. Let me get that. Here we go. Eyes and nostrils are right at the top of his head. So he doesn't even have to come out of the water. He just has to stick his nose up. It pops out of the water. He catches that breath, and then he goes back down. So a lot of times they're around in murky waters and ponds, and we don't even see them. They pop up. They see us with their eyes. See how high the ridge on the eyes and the nose. So they just come up. Once that breaks the surface level, the rest of their body literally stays down like this. So they have a pattern like almost like if they're an L. They see you, they breathe, and then they just go right back down under. Safe and secure. All right? But this guy is a little bit skinny. His stomach area is very, instead of being, you know, sort of fluffed out, it's very, very, you know, a lot of loose skin, like if he went on a diet. So he was a bit hungry. Wherever he was stuck, he was desperate for food and moving around. So that's where he ended up there. Well, this guy would eat small fishes and just about anything that is meat that he can catch. So from frogs, small turtles, fishes, things that we dispose of in the river. So we have a lot of cases where families call me to remove a large caiman. I'm like, wow, this caiman is big. They said, yeah, we didn't expect it to get so big. I said, you know this caiman from before? Yeah, we used to feed it all the chicken guts and the chicken head when we clean chicken and so on. Yep. Do not feed wildlife. Yeah. So they fed it when it was smaller than this, and now it's about 6 feet and threatening the dog and the little baby, and now they're in a tizzy, and they're calling me to remove it. Right? Because they want to see me rump with alligator, according to them. Yeah, Mr. If I grab the alligator, I like, no, I'm not going to grab no alligator. He's in the water. When they're in the water and bigger than this guy, I leave them alone. That's their area.
Yeah,
Okay?
you're in their
That is their
territory.
area. Yeah.
So
On the land, I stand a chance. In the water, all yours, buddy. Take win.
Yeah, all
Take
yours. Because I
Yeah.
see that you have
Yeah.
the blue tape around his mouth. Is it to
Yes,
prevent him
that's
from? Is he
better.
biting?
That's better for one, and that's to protect both of us. Okay, so I know, yeah. You want to see me get bitten, so I'll take it off and take a bite for the team. Not gonna happen. I will take the tape off, but I'm not gonna get bitten. Okay, I'm guarantee you that I'm not gonna get bitten. If I do, well, you can have a good laugh at me. Okay, so that's him with the tape off there. And what he may do, at some point that he may try to bite me, so he'll open his mouth. I'm actually hoping that he tries to snap. I'm in a safe position in handling him. Like I said, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. So I'm handling him from a safe position. So if he swings back and swings forward, I have control of his body and he cannot bite me. But you will see his mouth open. I'm hoping that he does, say something to get him really pissed off.
Hey, Wally, your name should be Pooley. Hey, Wally.
Right? So yeah, he's pretty calm and accepted my handling. So he's not opening his mouth. But the thing with caimans, even with their mouth shaped and closed, they're dangerous because you can see the teeth protruding on the outside. On the outside. So I've seen people have their mouth taped, and when they swing their head around with a tremendous force, those teeth would have busted open people's ankles and shins and so on. So I remember, this is a tiny guy. As they get bigger, so too do those teeth. But this animal is one of the shyest animals you will come across. The only time you could have a confrontation with him is if you catch him in your yard and back him in a corner in the fence, and you don't want to leave him alone. So now he's going to open his mouth and flare up and tell you, I'm going to bite you. Leave me. Boy, I tell you, leave me. What you coming by me for? Leave me alone. Leave me alone. And then if you get closer with your broomstick or whatever, it will snap at that. So if you leave it alone, if he had space to go, he is running. He's a runner. He gets them little feet into action and he is gone.
Yeah.
One here would run away, especially at the size, run away from you. There's no standing up. He would just open his mouth to give himself some time, like probably try to scare you, like, hey, I'm going to bite you in, and then turn and run.
Yeah.
So nobody has ever been killed. I mean, there is a video here where someone's pup, a little pup down south, got grabbed by one in a pond. That is actually true, but look at the size of a little puppy and look at the size of you. The puppy went by the pond and the caiman came up and said, lunchtime. Got him.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay. A sad situation, but the reality is the caiman was in his home. He did not come into the people's yard. Okay, and I think the government responded by draining the pond and removing them and stuff like that. But, it is what it is. What we need to do is, these guys don't get big enough to really do any serious damage to anyone. They're definitely not going to kill anyone. So there's no reason to fear them. Okay, and of course the best thing is don't feed them in your backyard and then call me and tell me how big it gets. Because now, feeding makes it ignore people. There's no fear of humans anymore. You just want to, where is my food? That's the sort of attitude you sort of would have. You don't want that. Okay, I love, remember I told you when I had the squirrel on, I love to see videos of people being attacked by squirrels. And it's not that I'm a wicked person, but most of the time, not all the time, they look for that. They went and buy that wholesale. These are usually the people who will feed in the squirrels. When in the parks and all over the US, for example, the policy is do not feed wildlife. But you think if I give it a little nuts here and a little this there, it'll be nice to me. So eventually you come back after the 4th, 5th day and you don't have your nuts. And the squirrel is now pissed off. Where my food? And he attacks you. That is what happens. It also happens when people play their fast and want to rehabilitate a squirrel and then put it back in the wild. The squirrel has gotten accustomed to people providing food, and then you put it in the wild and tell him, go find your own. So he's going to find the closest person possible, approach them for food, and if they don't have, they could feel some teeth.
Yeah.
So I laugh my head off because I know what has happened. Somebody would have messed with this animal, told this animal basically, come to humans for food, and that is what he is doing. I had a guy, one I saw just a couple of days ago, the guy is doing the coolest dance because the squirrel is running all over his body. And the dog is standing there and watching him. Then when he flips the squirrel off, the dog goes to the squirrel, and then the squirrel does the same thing to the dog. The dog is yelping and bawling, and the squirrel is running all the way. And just they were freaking out. I almost wet myself.
gosh,
It was
Mr. Mead.
funny. It is funny. It is funny.
I
And
actually
again,
have a question to ask you, but go ahead, finish what you were saying. So my question was not about the caiman, but about pigs. Right, I don't know if the Asukari Center, if they rehabilitate pigs or remove pigs from premises, but you know the pigs has been roaming around the east-west corridor, Beatam, yeah. So right now they're in what my granddad's backyard, and eating his yams and his all of his produce that he has in his backyard, and they're coming near to the chickens and ducks. So it's a nuisance because they're eating his crops. So I wanted to know if you guys, or what to do about something like that. Do you guys remove them, or how to keep them away from the backyard? His backyard isn't fenced off. It's a huge. It's not fenced off at all. It's huge. So how can we deal with that? If you can have some advice for us.
Jada,
Mr. Reed?
we have a problem.
Oh gosh.
We have a problem. Okay, the fact that it's not fenced off now, you're just open to just about anything or anyone coming in there. Really, it's the job of the city corporation, if it's in city limits, city corporation or regional corporation, they should get together and deal with that. Because that problem of eating crops, that's actually a minor problem. There was at least one accident where someone struck one of them.
Yes, I remember that, yeah.
And they should have literally sent out people to capture them or remove them, because they do pose a serious threat to lives and livelihood. And I see them, I get scared when I see them. I'm coming along on the beach, I'm coming into Port of Spain early in the morning, and they're right there. And I'm like, don't cross, whatever you do.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that nothing scares them, because when they bolt across, they run very fast. So just imagine you zipping along, doing your 80 to 100, and something scares them on the landfill side, and then they run across. It is, you know,
It'll be horrible, nasty.
It can be very, very frightening, because again, I know the incidents with these animals before. I know the incidents with these animals in other places. They should be caught and removed. I don't think anybody's going to eat them. Based on where they are and the probably level of heavy metals and contaminants that may be in their bodies. Okay, and I wouldn't even recommend them to feed animals with it. Okay, so they should be caught, humanely put down, and given proper disposal, either incinerated or used in a backhoe on a very deep hole and bury them, so that they're not exposed to other animals and other elements. So it's a very dangerous thing. For example, it's estimated that in the US, in the state of Texas alone, close to 14 billion with a B dollars worth of damage are done by feral pigs every year. So they have all sorts of programs and traps, and they shoot them from helicopters, and people do them for sport and so on. In California, I was going hunting. Yep, I will go hunting. Yep. So those who think that I'm soft, yes, I'm an environmentalist. Remember that. Okay. So these wild feral hogs that people have introduced into the American system, they were damaging some people's property, and I had agreed to assist them a morning by going to hunt some of them. And turns out that someone stole the catalytic converter off our vehicle, and we just didn't go anywhere. And that was literally canceled right then. But I look forward for another opportunity to go. Okay. So you guys who want to hunt and kill things, make it meaningful, make it significant. Do something to help rather than diminish our already local resources. Right? Take a plane, go to California by a cousin and help them shoot some wild boar. They would love you for it. You would barely make a scratch, but you know, you'll have some fun. You can show off and see what's the biggest you can get. And even when you're walking in the parks and you come across a herd of these things, it can be quite scary. Because if they have babies and they, you know, the babies squeal and the parents come out front and you run, they will run after you sometimes, and you know, they can be quite dangerous. Remember, they're omnivores. So they're actually more dangerous than the caiman. They will eat your flesh. They will kill you and eat you if they get an opportunity.
They will eat you
Just remember
extinct.
that. Yeah, they eat flesh.
As
They eat
And this is backs up to off topic, but a Criminal Minds episode where they introduced pigs, and one of the criminals used a pig to get rid of their victims, and all that the evidence that they could show was the people's shoes and belongings, and it introduced to me the topic of pigs are just a disposal tool because they eat everything.
This is why I don't eat pork, any kind of pig meat, because they're nasty, and they just eat anything, and they are nasty.
Chickens too.
I don't
want that to get out because that's now going to crash the poultry industry and I'm going to put a lot of people on the unemployment line and so on. But chickens eat everything. Everything. Okay? There's nothing, including their own poop.
Yeah, but I think it's worse. It's worse for the. I think it's worse for the pig because pigs, right? And pigs eat everything, yes, and probably chickens too. But pigs have no nutritional value. That's what I've learned.
Oh, Mr. Me, let's see what I
Mr. Mead is saying no, but I've heard this on multiple occasions.
I mean protein,
and I've seen they don't have any type of nutritional value.
First and foremost, it's one of the main sources of protein for a lot of people around the world. A lot. And the reason why they use it for protein is because you can use stuff that is not usable for you to generate protein. So for example, a poor family in the Philippines, they have a pig in the backyard, and they, for the most part, they're eating provisions and yams and stuff. The skin, when they peel the yams and the yuca, cassava, sweet potato, the skin from the plantain, all of that, the pig will eat that and grow. And come Christmas time, you have meat. It's protein. Everything provides something.
Because I guess there's certain things that they eat or certain things in their diet would give them the nutrients.
Yeah, it's
for
meat.
when
Once you have
we eat them.
You have
but
protein.
I don't know.
One thing you get from pork is a lot of meat.
Yes, you get a lot of meat. That's true.
A lot of meat. Okay, and it's a quicker harvest than, for example, a cow.
Yeah.
Okay. Cow takes a much longer time unless you're going to go for veal and venison and that young, subtle stuff there. So it's a 6 months to harvest and so on. You know, there's lots of benefits to it.
I think it also depends on the cut of pork. It depends on the taste because some pork cuts taste better than others, and it tastes cleaner. Because sometimes I stopped eating pork because there was a time I ate. It was just a regular, like said, piece of pork, and it was so fresh and it tasted like it was garbage. It had a scent, a very funky scent, and it just threw me completely off because it was just disgusting. And that's what made me realize, like, okay, maybe what people say about pork is true. Like, it's dirty. You know?
He's watching us like...
Lots of animals are, you know. Yeah. Actually, they'll tell you their favorite food is maniku. Their favorite meat, wild meat, is maniku. It don't get much dirtier than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this isn't how it's prepared.
You can prepare it how you want.
No, it's who cooking it. Who cooking it and how they cleaning it. I think you can eat anything, you know, but it's how you clean it.
Push comes to shove for survival. We will eat anything.
Yep.
Okay. Just remember the plane that crashed with the football team in the Andes.
Yeah.
And they started eating the dead ones to survive.
Yeah.
You would do the same. I would do the same.
No, I wouldn't.
Right? You would say a little prayers and say goodbye to veganism or vegetarianism and say yes to I want to stay alive-ism.
No.
You know, many of them are wanting to stuff that they eat their friends, but you rather die?
I'd rather die because I'm probably going to die anyway, so better I die not ever trying another human.
And the only reason they survived is because they ate their teammates.
Yeah, I can't. I wouldn't. I would die.
And
they would eat me.
You're saying that now?
No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Because, you know, my thought process would be, I don't know how long we're going to be stranded here. And I just can't do it. I can't. So next thing we eat everybody, right? then you come and die, they're gonna eat you. Then it's just gonna keep happening. So if they stay there and they were never found, and all of them die, then what's the point? Them eat their friends and still die, you know? So my thought process would be, all you could have me, go ahead and eat me, that's fine. That's fine. I wouldn't eat anybody.
So what if the fellas and them say, well, no, we do eat red meat?
Oh my gosh.
Well, I still die. And
I feel like I saw that joke coming. I feel like I saw it coming.
No, I wouldn't do that at all.
When you're in this situation,
I wouldn't want to survive so bad. You know, survive to what? Because I don't know if I'll ever be found. As far as I know, I am stuck here with no proper clothes, running water, nothing. Like no.
Running water? They're in snow. You rub some snow, you get water. You know, but the thing is, it was in modern times, it wasn't way back. There was a big plane that crashed there. And so they knew the plane crashed, so they would have sent people out. So you know all of this put together.
Yeah.
Okay? You know, it wasn't like an expedition covered by an avalanche and they have no clue where you are.
Yeah.
You know, the plane went down, you know, the storm, everything like that there. But, you know, many of them survived and, you know, it's like, look what happens when people are on the ocean.
But you know, the ones that survive, they're going to need therapy.
Hey, they're men who play big and fast and went in to see the birth of their children and they needed therapy afterwards. Anytime we're exposed to some trauma or something different, things can happen to us. And you have to accept that part of life.
Cannibalism to me is just, you can't come back from that. You can't. What if now, the ones who did that, they are now, like they crave human meat. like now they have an addiction to human meat. Like they don't want no other meat, they want human. And then this is now you have a serial killer on your hands.
That's a big jump.
No, you know, these are things that I will think about. Like, I don't want to try something. Next thing I like it, and it's a problem to get it. That was just a story in my life. Once upon a time, I had a human meat, and I love it.
Like human meat.
You know,
I can guarantee you, nobody loved it. I can guarantee that. I've read the stories and stuff like that there. You know, at least they, you know, one thing they said, one thing that, you know, was meaningful for them is that their friends shall always be a part of them.
I don't know if I like that. Because I'm not away.
Okay.
I don't know if I like that.
Literally, you know, they said, you know, they would have wanted this. I will do anything just about to survive. Just about. See, after you live, then you can fix up anything and do anything else and, you know, repent or whatever. But you have to be alive. You know, I appreciate, that's why I fight for the animals too, you know. I understand this concept. If this last week when that frigate died.
To me, I just...
The feeling behind that.
Yeah, no, what's meant to be will be. If I survive, I survive. If not, then I don't survive. But you can't.
But the human nature is to survive, so you do whatever you can to make that happen.
Okay. Cannibalism is wrong. It will never be right. No situation will ever condone cannibalism. We're being real.
You know you didn't kill the person, right?
It doesn't matter. Cannibalism is just wrong. Cannibalism does not mean I kill you, I eat you. It just means I eat you.
When someone is dead, what is left?
Flesh.
The shell. And while we would, in the best situation, like to treat the shell, the carcass, with a due level of respect to show homage to the person that was, that person no longer is.
But eating them doesn't change it. I am not thinking eating them is disrespecting them. No, it's just, I'm just thinking it's wrong.
Why would it be wrong?
It's wrong.
Why would it be wrong?
I think it's different perspectives why it would be wrong. It could be up to some people's religion. It could be up to some people's ethics. It could be up to some people, they just find it gross and disgusting and they don't want to do it. I think that's where I would fall.
That's all in your mind. But you see when your belly rumbling and your body feeling, that's me.
And there may be some truth in that.
I will quicker take find a insect. I will quicker eat an insect or eat a...
You're in the snow, in the Andes.
Oh, true. Okay,
Ain't no
I'll
insect.
quicker find this. There has to be some sort of animal. I don't know.
Snow-capped mountain of the Andes. That's where the plane crashed.
Right. So not only they ate the human, but the human wasn't even cooked.
They cooked it. They cooked it. Yeah, I think first they tried it raw, and then they found a way to get it cooked.
There was no airplane snacks? Nothing?
What's that?
No snacks that it went up in fire or something? Nothing on the plane?
Have you been on American Airlines? Those little crackers and water?
You see, this is why anytime I go anywhere, I take multiple snacks and a lot of water with me. I always have at least 2 to 3 bottles of water on me and multiple snacks in my bag.
This is why she's always overweight, and we have to stand there at the counter while she pulls stuff out of her bag. I've been there already with people like that.
No.
In JFK,
I have never held up a line for having stuff in my bag.
Open, pulling out the unmentionables and giving it to a cousin to carry back because they're overweight. That is the Trini.
No, I am not that Trini. Mr. Mead.
I think we honestly have to agree to disagree. We do have to start her up.
Yes.
Mr. Mead, we will see you next week, Wednesday.
That's one of my favorite songs in it. I will survive.
Yeah, Gloria is cheering you on from beyond the group.
Right, I will be the one. Who's going to tell you a story? I have to tell the story. I will survive.
The story will be told.
Miss Gloria Gino is cheering for you. Mr. Mead, thanks so much for joining us on another edition of Wild Wednesdays. Thank you, Wally, for joining us as well.
Yeah, you realize how wild the discussion got today?
Yes, it did. Stop holding him so close to you, he may bite you.
Pardon me?
Stop holding him so close to you, he may bite you.
No, he can't swing his head towards me.
Okay.
See, it looks like it's close. I have enough there and I have control of his head here. He can't swing. He can't swing at all. Okay? And, it's great dealing with these creatures. They're very, very comfortable and easy to deal with. And he's going to be going for a swim in a short while. Well, as soon as I get my car fixed.
Yes,
right? He's going to be going for a swim. And we'll do the video of the release and everything like that. People are like, what you do with it? What you do with it? All they eat it. I feel all they eat the tail. No. I will tell one person, I'll eat your tail before I eat this animal. Trust me. And he looked at me like, what? Yeah. Maybe Mr. Mead is looking at cannibalism.
No.
What is the date today?
The 9th.
Wait, isn't it Sparrow's birthday?
The 9th of July?
Yeah, I think so. Is it the 9th or the 15th? I'm not sure. But what is one of his most famous songs? Oh gosh, I forgot I deal with these young people.
Yeah. July 9th, 1935.
Today?
Yep.
Well,
happy birthday, Sparrow.
Happy birthday to the mighty Sparrow.
Right? The bush doctor.
Mr. Mead, you can come back for a part 2 on cannibalism debate next week.
And we have to play that song in the background.
Okay, we can organize for that. Well, thanks so much for joining us on another edition of Wild Wednesday. We do hope that you have a beautiful day. Bye, and bye to Wally.
Bye, guys. Love your animals, but leave them alone. Don't eat them. Eat your neighbor.
No.
Might get in trouble for that one.
You get trouble for that one, yeah.
Anyway.
So as you guys know, you can always engage with us on WESNCC, WESN TV. You have the WhatsApp number right there, 682-9376, 682-9376. To tell us your suggestions and just have any discussions that you want to have us to have, we can have that for you. Just let us know.
Yeah. So don't waste your time in anger, regrets, worries, and grudges. Life is too short to be unhappy. So.
I like that. Life is too short to be unhappy, guys.
Yeah. Smile, have a big heart, forgive, move on, life goes on.
And don't be a cannibal.
Don't be a cannibal. So stay safe, stay inspired, stay informed, and don't go too far because you have Sean Michael Small with Talking Point now. Thanks for joining us today. So we'll see you back here again tomorrow morning.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Bye.
WESN.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year, the Trade and Investment Convention, happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days, and NAM Devco on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Bal Roop Group and Bmobile Business.
I want to get a tattoo.
You really want
to me. Respond to me how you would respond to me.
The first question I'll ask is why.
Controversial taboo topics.
We get so consumed by church, we forget that we have to live the life of being a Christian outside of the Sunday.
Like you say,
services.
we think going to a service makes us a Christian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So here we are about to hear the second time Pastor J wanted to take a tattoo.
Would have been late last year and early this year.
Oh gosh.
Hope Unfiltered podcast with Pastor J and Ren.
We are tackling the hard-hitting topics, some controversial topics, some topics we sweep under the rug. You don't always have to forgive in a relationship for it to move forward.
If it is you are in a situation where you forgive the person, but to the detriment of yourself, what are you really doing?
It is very uncommon for somebody in the younger age group to have dementia.
Atheists don't not believe.
Is that I can't disprove God, but you also can't prove God. So we kind of have a stalemate.
We'll focus on the woman who's been the victim,
right,
or the man has been the victim. We exclude the children.
Folks are trying to study the underlying brain mechanism to figure out how does this particular disorder happen in the brain? How is the brain processing this?
Don't worry about AI. Worry about humans working with AI.
Are you willing to learn new skills to stay relevant for the future job market? That's the challenge that people are going to struggle with.
This is 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for. It's called loss and damage, and we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. I mean, and Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
This is Face of Sports, WESN Content Capital. How you felt about the kiss on the lips?
That's the business. I'm nothing to do with that.
I find that was distasteful.
The national senior team, whether you like it or not, that is the model for all other teams to follow.
I'm assuming that the regional requirement may be a much stricter requirement.
This is not about Pro League and Super League. This is a league run by the Normalization Committee that I'm responsible for.
Nobody expected FIFA to fund this arrangement.
If we don't get a professional attitude towards this, we are doomed for failure.
You break the balance, trip the leg, control the body.
They ain't gonna stand put forever.
Why you want the Chiefs to lose so? Why you want the Chiefs to lose so?
They already have two. Lamar don't
Why?
have.
You're jealous because you know the Chiefs getting closer to the Patriots. Let's go to the last part.
No,
of the game.
no.
Let's go to the last part.
WESN.
I guess the jury's still out if we, that is to say Trinidad and Tobago, is a real place. Although, of course, you could find ridiculous situations, some over the top, some relatively mundane and minor, but you could find them around the world. They all have their different flavors based on whatever culture they're in, of course. And to some extent, when you look at a ridiculous situation in another culture, it might seem even more over the top to you. But every now and then, we remind ourselves of some of the ridiculous happenings that goes on within our country, and it brings back the question, is Trinidad a real place? Whenever I speak about this, more often than not, I don't include Tobago because it seems as though Tobago avoids the ridiculousness of it all. Tobago seems to be a little bit saner. And maybe it's because as a smaller island, it doesn't have quite the same growing pains that Trinidad has. As a smaller island with a bit more manageable scale of its problems, right? They're looking at when a murder rate is at 10 to 20, that's a big deal. Whereas here, we're like, 650 is the next threshold we have to worry about, more or less. I say that not because of a murder, not because of a political scandal, not because of some private business scandal, not because of some, high-profile sexual assault case, although there is one of those in the news. But no, those are technically normal in any modern society, unfortunately. No. I speak of, here on Talking Point, Sean Michael Small, welcome to all of you valued viewers. I speak of a farmer having 3,000 pounds of tomatoes stolen from him, basically through the back door, while he is apparently meeting and touring with government officials, including at least 2 government ministers, one of whom being the Minister of Agriculture. Pretty larceny apparently is going on while the minister is there. And then what compounds the situation is when the farmer realizes he's been robbed, reports the theft, and even reports where the stolen goods are in a van that's stuck in the mud police come and do something about it. He's attempting to prevent the thief from going any further, blocking the thief's escape path. The police say, no, don't do that. All right, that's understandable. But then the police still don't appear to... Not only does the alleged perpetrator of the crime not have to worry about the police coming after him. Funny how that works, right? I do wonder if it's almost like if he knew the police wouldn't come after him. That's just a speculative question on my part. But he was able to convince a passerby to help unstick his van. Ain't that some... All in Trinidad, I don't think I've ever heard of a story where you have someone accusing another person of theft, and then a passerby comes and helps get the thieves, alleged thieves' van unstuck. Not only do we not have the village apparently, but the village actively is supporting criminality depending on the veracity of the theft complaints. Ain't that some all in Trinidad? That's like 3 unbelievable things, in my opinion, all rolled up into one. Because it's not every day you hear, ooh, robbery occurs while government minister visits. Well, more than one. It's not every day. Well, maybe you hear this every day, depending on your experiences may vary. The police basically not respond to a criminal who is stuck in the mud. They don't even have to chase. They don't have to look for him. They don't have to do nothing. They just have to come to a spot. Nah, that's too hard. I don't think we can respond to that in time. And then, of course, the Good Samaritan helps potentially, allegedly, the villain escape, not the hero of the story, allegedly. Only in Trinidad, apparently. Only in TNT. It's like, we really don't care? I don't know. 3,000 pounds of tomatoes. And then we want to know why our farmers aren't able to do anything. Your government working for you. We'll distract the farmers while the robbers could go and steal from them. Easy peasy. I mean, I know that's not the intention of the minister's visit, but still, this is again based on the reports of the situation. And it's not all the minister's fault. This is not like the Minister of National Security told the police, hey, don't go and deal with that, leave that alone. But that, of course, to me is the biggest question of the bunch. Someone calls you and says they were robbed and says they see the robber. You don't at least go to see? Because on a certain level of responsibility, let's just say that the person got frustrated with the police and decided to take matters into their own hands due to a lack of response. And then what do you get? You get a random result that could probably only be bad. More often than not will be bad. Either the alleged robber gets hurt, or the accuser could get hurt, depending on the intervention that the accuser tries to undertake. Where's the police to control the situation? You're not just responsible for going out to respond to accusations of crime. You have a duty to go out to deal with potential situations where it's a reasonable assumption that a conflict between 2 citizens can occur. So maybe you should go out there at the very least to inquire what's going on and to ensure that the situation does not get out from under control. That something just doesn't happen, nobody runs amok. What if the robber got stuck and decided in his frustration to attack people around him? Is it that the police just don't believe the reports of citizens? Are there that many false flags, false accusations going on? And then depending, if people are able to make false accusations willy-nilly to waste police time, why aren't those things dealt with directly if that happens? So what's wrong in this situation? Was the response time too long? Sorry, police, that's a you problem. That's not a population problem. Unless with the response time, people want to demand police to show up instantly. You know, you have 5 seconds or less to show up and deal with my situation now. Yeah, fine, that's unreasonable. Doesn't sound like the guy was only stuck in the mud for 30 seconds. Could be wrong, but even then, doesn't sound like the police responded at all. In fact, it says about half an hour later, another van assisted the perpetrator by pulling his vehicle. Half an hour? How far were you? This is Trinidad and Tobago. Like half an hour should get you a quarter of the way to anywhere. A quarter of the way across the island in any direction, at any point, basically. Except through rush hour traffic on the east-west corridor. But think about it. How long does it take to drive to Togo? How long does it take to drive to San Fernando? All right, if we're somewhere in the east, somewhere in the south. But it's not like the police were responding from Port of Spain. At least one would hope, right? Anyway, meanwhile, another situation that could only happen in Trinidad, I mean, that's not entirely true, right? Things like this happens elsewhere. But it's very on brand that it happens to us, right? When hurricane season, and apparently the Meteorological Service of Trinidad and Tobago had staff shortages. Timing could have been better. Yesterday, TTMS suspended its routine forecast products and services due to staff shortages at one of its branches in Piaco. Services will resume at 7:16 p.m. Okay. Now, I'm not entirely sure if it says why there's a shortage, but it is what it is. Let's just hope nothing important happens, no big storm happens around this time, because you know what I mean. You know what I mean? But I guess we'll just get our news from international sources. We can't do that for everything. We could maybe do that for certain storms and hurricanes, but ironically, the stuff in between the obvious international hurricanes that everybody's looking out for and the tropical storms that will primarily hit us. It's not like we could depend on regional and international sources to give us that information and to do that work for us. That's the trick. And more often than not, it's not the hurricanes that bother us. It's just the random rain that doesn't seem all that violent, but somehow dumps far too much water in an area that has far too little drainage, and then something floods and bad things potentially happen. Now, switching gears a bit, one of the things that is tricky, but I think more and more in the modern age, we have to be willing to have the conversations on it. And that is, especially in the past, this happened, right? And it's debatable as to the reasoning why, but I don't think anyone would necessarily defend it or say that it was fine. But the president has come out and said that, or come out to question, this is the report, I'm reading from the report, whether or not she would be as harshly criticized as she is if she were a man. So basically, they hate me because I'm a woman. It's all because of sexism. The problem with that is, and I don't know if it's intentional in this case or not, but usually we have seen that in certain industries where there is people at the forefront, like the entertainment industry, particularly movies. Somehow it doesn't happen in television, but particularly in movies. This is an excuse used, usually in order to deflect or ignore criticisms that mention nothing about the person's gender whatsoever. Now we're in 2025. To what extent do we have that many critics who have such an old school worldview that women are not supposed to do certain things? The thing is, the fact of the matter is, if my memory serves correct, the last two male presidents, it's not as though they were universally loved. And to be honest, at least from my point of view, none of my criticisms had anything to do about the gender of the president, and it had everything to do with the associations of the president. And even then, at least in my case, I don't know to what extent people would say I criticize President Christine Kangaloo. Like, for instance, when it came time for her husband to get senior counsel, she did it. We said on the desk it would have been better if her predecessor did it. Why did they wait for her to do it? Yes, it might be a nice, happy moment, but optically, it's horrible. Also, let's not forget, this is at a time when the country just elected or re-elected its first female prime minister to her second term with an overwhelming majority of votes. So how is it that one woman is fine, but the other woman is bad? And then I guess perhaps this goes back to a certain situation where too many of our holders of public office are not necessarily willing to fully listen to the criticism. Because of course some of it will be extreme. And I don't doubt there'll be some misogyny in there. But it's very easy to lump it all as misogynistic. Because at the end of the day, that's not what you want to hear. You want to hear a yes man or a yes woman. You don't want to entertain criticisms, because then if the criticisms might be true, then that might imply that it's your fault as opposed to their fault. But here's part of the problem. Is it that all of the critics are men? I don't know. I know that when a movie studio wants to blame misogyny for their movie failing, the fact of the matter is, more often than not, more men than women go to see those failing movies. So how is that misogynistic? And usually, at least a couple of years ago internationally, this is not a conversation that people would be comfortable having, because how dare you don't believe the victim? Victim of what? A politician who's been criticized? I'm an equal opportunity critic. And unfortunately, the president was the president of the Senate for, and was appointed by a previous administration. I don't know if she noticed, but their popularity tanked in a not too subtle way once the election results revealed anyway. And right now, it has reached the point where, dare I say, it's almost turned into a sport about people bashing the PNM, to the point where I think it's gone too far. But it has nothing to do about gender, because Dr. Keith Rowley is lumped in there just as much as anybody else. Now, asking the question, the president is not out of bounds for asking the question. And again, I won't doubt that there would be some misogyny. In fact, I don't even know if it would necessarily be misogyny per se, or at least to the full extent. But if you just look at the police executive situation, unfortunately, you have two examples that's going to cause people to make jokes, run with stereotypes, have assumptions for female police officers in high positions. I have been told they have many capable senior women police officers in the service. And it's very questionable if the two members of the executive that have different controversies hanging over them were anywhere near the best example of what WPCs could end up being as part of the executive leadership team of the service. We probably did not get the best examples of women in leadership in the police service. But to some extent, that's what we got. And unfortunately, there are probably female police officers and all. Just like there are female drivers who basically look at other women drivers and look down on them, there are probably female police officers that are saying, hey, they're not looking so hot. Now, to what extent is that outright full-on misogyny? And to what extent is that just, unfortunately, bad examples that we have to hopefully maybe find better examples to rewrite the narrative, to be a better role models and better inspiration? Fact of the matter is, for the most part, I don't think President Christine Kangaloo is doing an outright bad job. Her predecessor made far more controversial decisions and statements than she did. And some of the things that Christine Kangaloo has said, some of the stances she's taken, I've appreciated. Some of the speeches she's delivered, I actually thought were very well done, given the limitations of her position. And the unfortunate part about it is, she might not have a lot of blame to take on for anything she's done, and maybe that's why she feels like she's being treated unfairly. So then, of course, she has to ask, well, you know, it seems like I'm being treated unfairly. Why? Is it because I'm a woman? And I would say it's probably more likely because you were, / in the perception of many, still are a member of the PNM. And like I said, it's almost become a game or a sport to bash the PNM. Of course, the PNM, the actual active members of the PNM, because I don't think the president is an active member of the PNM, she declared herself now independent. Again, do people believe that? I don't know. But she's not necessarily active with regards to the party and how the opposition is presenting itself. And one could argue, hey, they're not helping themselves at a time when I have seen citizens laugh at the opposition, outright think of them as a joke. That's how far they've fallen in some settings and in some circles. They have reached the point where citizens think they're a joke. And these are not UNC diehard supporters, UNC base supporters. These are people who are not UNC anything. It's just that that is how far the perception of the PNM has fallen. And Christine Kangaloo, as the last president appointed by that last PNM administration, you unfortunately, and I'm not saying it's fair, you will be perceived as part of it, as part of the problem. And then, of course, it does not help that the independent senators have a certain perception as well by the public, which is something the Law Association conveniently either does not understand, ignores, or is incapable of seeing. And all that also comes back on you because you appointed them. We don't know necessarily who, if you take instructions, you know, in secret, or if you're totally independent. But that's besides the point, because public perception is not always going to line up with what you think it should line up to, regardless of whether it's the truth or not. And at the end of the day, this is part of the job. Part of the job for me is I might be hated in some circles, or disliked, or strongly disagreed with for my opinions. It's happened before. It's happened before I came on television. I understand, and I've seen it happen to many a public figure internationally. That's just part of the job. How you deal with that gracefully is up to you. Being the head of state or holding any similar type of position in government means you're very public. And like I said, think about the last two male presidents. How popular were they, at least at the end of their time? Did they have zero critics? And let's not forget A.N.R. Robinson. I think at this point, both diehard UNC and diehard PNM, they don't look at him probably with rose-colored glasses. That's a lot of the country to potentially not like you. Anyway, with that said, I would advise the president to be careful not to look as though she's making excuses, because ironically, that sort of tactic, it might work in America and the UK and Canada, at least in times gone by. Although the political winds are changing there. But here, with our somewhat conservative mindsets, and I don't mean Republican, but there are some similarities. I don't know if that sort of political ideological excuse would fly. And you might actually be harming yourself making that statement more than helping. Of course, this topic and all is one that some people might not like me for. But, like I said, can't please everybody, but these are sometimes the conversations that we have to have. And if you're willing to have the conversation with me, we could have it after our guest, who's coming up next. Of course, I said the good lady is coming to speak about the whole pharmacy situation. Well, honestly, part of it, because I think there's more to it than just the parts that she wants to speak about. But the part she wants to speak about is so big, it's not like we could get everything done in one day. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with the good lady herself after this.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year, the Trade and Investment Convention, happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days, and NAMDevco on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Balroop Group and Bmobile Business.
Do you need treatment for obesity or any related abdominal procedures? The community hospital now offers minimally invasive laparoscopic surgery done by an American-trained, board-certified surgeon with over 20 years' experience. Give us a call at 235-5479 for more information.
The Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist,
where good private health care is affordable.
If these walls could talk, they'd cry uncle. They didn't plan to become offices or yoga studios. But they've stood by us, even when we got a little stir-crazy. For that, they deserve some thanks. They deserve Benjamin Moore.
Struggling with heart health or frequent migraines? Discover the simple steps to reclaim your energy and vitality.
We're diving into a topic that affects about 422 million people around the world: diabetes.
Tune into Wellness Unlocked, the series that delivers expert advice, practical tips, and inspiring stories to help you take control of your health and well-being. Your health matters. Don't miss Wellness Unlocked. Watch now on WESN and take the first step toward better health.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. The distance from where we should be in the world in going forward on our commitments with climate change.
The effects of climate change that cannot be accounted for, it's called loss and damage. And we're seeing loss and damage happening so much more in this decade and the previous decade.
The principal term there was this question of the correspondent banking issues.
That is why we're trying to build capacity with this country here, Trinidad and Tobago, and other countries in the region.
Man is not showing any signs of stopping or even slowing down. More than half of the forest in Trinidad is already gone.
All the plants and all the animals and all of the nice clean water and fresh air and everything had to be on this planet for humanity to have a chance.
We have small change when it comes to countries that can take decisions, and when they speak, the world listens.
The General Assembly is a very democratic forum. And Trinidad and Tobago has the same vote as Canada, in spite of the obvious difference in size.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Our award-winning show is back, and this season promises to be even more exciting than before. What's Up, Doc isn't just a title. It's a call to action for anyone who wants to improve their health and well-being. Join us on this thrilling ride towards better health on WESN Content Capital.
Money is something we all deal with, but how many of us truly understand it? What if you could make better decisions with your money? Decisions that secure your future, protect your family, and bring you peace of mind. I'm Darren Jacobs, and I'm here to help you make sense of your dollars. Welcome to Dollars and Cents, the show that breaks down the financial world in ways that matter to you. No jargon, no confusion, just real conversations about money, your money. So join me every Wednesday at 10 a.m. on WESN for Dollars and Cents.
And we're back here and talking about WSN, the Content Capital. And not too long ago, I did say when one instance of rumblings from the pharmacy sector came up, I'm like, I don't necessarily know enough about this sector and everything that's going on, but I've heard things over the years, little anecdotes here and there that makes me think they have a lot of problems here. And then we did not consult each other on this. My good friend, Karen Teixeira, she was quite adamant in an unsolicited way. She was like, this is what I want to talk about next. And when I heard that, I was like, well, all right, yeah, let's do it. And of course, to join me to have the conversation, to speak on at least what might be the current topic with regards to pharmaceuticals in this country, we have Karen Teixeira. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning, Sean. And yes, I am pretty passionate about it because the topic of the pharmaceutical sector affects, and I'll be talking specifically with regard to the monopoly that appears to exist not only at the retail end, but more specifically at the distribution and at the wholesale sector of the pharmaceutical business or industry is really very, very troubling. And so that I thought today what acted as a sort of I used the word trigger last time, but I'm lost for a better expression to get me into deciding, well, let me look at this thing more closely, because it has been in the newspapers, particularly.
What prompted the topic?
Thank you. I would use that word from now on.
You know, actually, isn't that the academic term, the prompt? When you have a paper, you're a lecturer.
Well, I don't know if that is. I don't know. Look at getting, you know, when the student teaching the teacher.
I'm not qualified enough to be your student.
Right, but I think prompted is a better word, because trigger has little connotations we want to avoid. So having said that, what really prompted me to look at it more closely was a recent headline in the newspapers, I think in all, concerning the Trinidad and Tobago Pharmacy Board rejecting the Chamber of Industry and Commerce request for a 90-day moratorium to explore other options following a cease and desist letter which they received regarding distributors illegally selling medication to patients. But I think that was just the tip of the iceberg, and it really opened up the floor and reignited a discussion which I think all of us in Trinidad and Tobago need to become not only aware of, but become an advocate, because we just can't always sit down and state that the at the sidelines and somebody else will deal with it. History has shown us over and over again, it's happening right as we speak, that if we take that approach of putting our head in the sand, guess what? It does not go away, it just gets worse, and the floodgates open, and that's one of the reasons why I guess the lawyer in me says that sometimes you may feel that a situation is unfair, but there are greater considerations that if you do not take a strong position, we very well know that if you do not do this, nipping it in the bud, so to speak, you are going to find a situation where 5-10 years from now, you don't know how you reach there. You reach there because incrementally the demands become greater. So I want to nip this in the bud. And what is it I'm really speaking about is that the pharmaceutical industry and the monopoly that exists in this country with regard to the sale of both prescription, non-prescription, and even to some extent the CDAP drugs, which are far cheaper than the prescription drugs, as we already know. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that is, as I said, the board of Chamber of Commerce asked for some moratorium. But what is really the problem? And I rely very strongly on articles because I think it's important to take what would I say, very responsible. I try to be responsible most of the time, but in this case, a very responsible position with regard to why is it that we are targeting the pharmaceutical industry and saying, essentially, there is a monopoly or a very near monopoly. And if you look at the Fair Trading Act and the Fair Trading Commission established under the Act, which I'll look at in more detail, it says that 40% control of any sector in the economy will bring about or trigger, I think they might have used that word, or even if not, a claim of a monopoly claim. Now, having the monopoly in and of itself is not on itself enough, but you have to show how the monopoly claim affects segments in the society. So we look a little bit at that, but if you want to, you can look at section 7, 9, in particular section 20, 21, and 22, and 44 of the Fair Trading Commission Act, if you wish to look at it in more detail. So that's where I'm going to look at that in a short time. But before I look at that, what I want to speak to is that the fact that the Pharmacy Board in 2020, at the height of the COVID, I guess people were being charged exorbitant amounts for purchasing of items in the pharmacy, and the blame was being held solely on the foot of the I'm trying to get back into my, putting all the blame on the pharmacists. So Andrew Rahman came on board and said that the price increases are not our fault. So they identified that, and that's an April 6 article. He's the president of the Pharmaceutical Board, and I think he was re-elected to that position since then. Now, what he really said, and I have to put it down very simply, he said that the retail, which is the pharmacy side, they have ceilings that were implemented in 1986 with regard to how much they can mark up a pharmaceutical drug. If it is I want to get it right, if it is non-prescription, I think it may be 35%. If it's prescription, it's 30%, and if it's a CDAP, it's 20%. So they have a ceiling by law how much they can mark up a pharmaceutical. However, he pointed out that the real reason that you have, from their point of view, that the prices have gone through the window is because of the fact that the wholesalers and distributors segment of the pharmaceutical business is not regulated. It is not regulated. And as he said in the article, he said that you can find that because there's no regulation at that end, they are free at any time to increase the price of wholesale and prescription drugs or non-prescription, CDAP drugs, wholesale and retail. And then that is passed on to the Pharmacy Board that has limited as to the markup that they can implement. So I have it here now. It says, Rahman said, and this is an article they said 16-12 days ago, which is a Guardian article. And they use example of Panadol. Everybody uses Panadol. I even heard a clip about Panadol. He used Panadol for everything. That's all. And you have paracetamols, which you can use instead, which are about 10 times cheaper. But in any event, he said that Rahman said by law, pharmacies by law are allowed to mark up their prices 35% on non-prescription drugs, 30% on prescription drugs, and 25% on chronic disease medications. But wholesalers are not regulated. The people who indiscriminately raise the prices are the wholesalers. There are many items in the pharmacies that have catapulted up. He said, he gave an example. Now, this is about 2 years ago. Last Wednesday, this is the height of the COVID. Last Wednesday, he said he has called on the Ministry of Health to intervene on the issue, but apparently he has had no comment to make. Are you surprised? And that's the former minister, Dayal Singh. He said last Wednesday, the cost of a box of Panadol Extra Strength at a Port of Spain pharmacy was $24.95, $5 more than it was a week before. The price was after the pharmacy's 35% legal markup. And he gave other examples. He said that the real problem lies in the wholesale and distribution sector, and they are not regulated. And why has the government not regulated? Because they have called upon it. That's why the rich getting richer, you know. You understand? You understand? There's more than one day to skin a cat, you know. All right. So you have to ask yourself, why won't they regulate? And I'll talk a little bit more even about that. So then I looked then, having him say that, there was even another later article in 2024 that spoke more openly about it, and no one said it wasn't true. And this was at a leader of the opposition town hall meeting, the president of the Private Pharmacy Retail Business Association, Glenwayne Suchet. This is an article, yes, 11th of December 2024. It was reported in the Newsday. He said special import permits were granted to certain people to bring in medication, and one company had 75% control of the pharmaceutical in the country. By the way, the Fair Trading Act says that anybody who controls 40% of any market sector is in a monopoly situation. Is entered into a monopoly situation. The Fair Trading Act said an enterprise, is what it says, was considered as having a monopoly power if it controlled at least 40% of a particular market. He said the company, which owned a chain of super pharmacies nationwide, was using that monopoly to inflate prices, and he had brought the matter to the Fair Trading Commission. The foreign exchange, over $300 million annually are going to this major company, unbridled, unchecked. When the smaller companies and media companies approach the bank for foreign exchange, they're asked to take a loan for 3 years to 5 years to get US $1 million. Okay? He said he also talked about the Department of Chemistry, Food and Drug Division. He said out of 117 drugs that were registered in this country, of 167 drugs registered in this country, 117 was for one company. You understand what I am saying to you? So if you're trying to get something registered to bring options or alternatives to patients, you cannot get it registered because it will be competitive products to these other big companies. They're carrying up their prices, they increase their profit margin. He gave the example of Emergency. He said all these same drugs, for example, Emergency was fit to be used during COVID to save people's lives. But he said, however, they were taken off the market so another product could be sold to increase monthly sales by $6 million. So he goes on to say these things. He said there was sufficient shortage of over-the-counter as well as mental health drugs in the country, saying people could not even buy a Dulcolax tablet, sometimes could not get anesthetic to do a minor surgery. Do you hear what they're saying now? Nobody has this. This is 2024. I have not heard anybody who they are obviously targeting their comments at ever say that what has been said is not true. Not one person has come forward and say you all are not speaking the truth. So if you keep not saying the truth, there's truth in it. And Hammersmith and Company, in the height of the 2020 COVID, had an article on their website which headed, COVID-19 puts a spotlight on price gouging and other anti-competitive prices. They said as businesses today face this dynamically changing environment brought about by COVID-19 pandemic, there are important implications for competition enforcement, consumer exploitation, and unfair pricing, with the government facilitating the opening of more business activity, focus now shifting to economic recovery, paying attention to business behavior as it relates to abusive prices should not be ignored. And they went on and on. You go on their website, they go into great detail, and they tell you what price gouging is. And this is Hammersmith. You can't say that that is not a responsible source. So it is very clear that this country has a serious problem. So let us see who it is. Because now, when I was doing my research, I didn't dig up to find out some esoteric source, you know. They actually were boasting, as far as I'm concerned, because they were publishing it in the papers, right? They were publishing. So I'm going to read from my article, which I hope to have it published, because I feel so strongly, and I think a lot of it is a lack of knowledge. So then after all these things that they said, which I gave the examples, 2020, 2024, no one has said what they're saying is not true, right? They also said, I did mention, in addition, the same association in 2024 alleged that while advertising third schedule drugs, that's ones that require drugs, doctor or dentist prescriptions, remains illegal. These drugs are advertised via an app by a super pharmacy. Now, nobody said they're not talking the truth, so let's get to the point. Every indication points to Agostini Limited as the dominant pharmaceutical company in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2010, Agostini Limited, which is 100% owned by the Mute family, heard that? A family. Acquired Smith Robinson, rebranded it Aventa in 2025. Aventa is the largest pharmaceutical distribution company in Trinidad and Tobago. In 2021, Agostini added to its portfolio of pharmaceutical distribution Oscar Francois, which they said that both of them were the pharmaceutical powerhouses. That's how the Guardian article thinks. So this is coming from the papers, you know. And then they added Intersol Limited. In 2015, Agostini entered into a joint ownership agreement with Han Arnold, and in July 2024, Christian Mute, chairman of the Agostini Limited, in the papers, announced Agostini's acquisition of 3 wholesale traders under the Aventa name. Aventa also operates, you hear what they are? Wholesale traders. Aventa also operates as a pharmaceutical wholesaler working with global firms Roche, Bayer, Pfizer, and GlaxoSmithKline. And while CDAP medication, the chronic disease assistance program, has increased the demand for cheaper generic drugs, potentially decreasing the demand for more expensive brand name drugs, Aventa is also a major distributor of generic drugs. So, I didn't make it up. I got it in the papers. And as a matter of fact, they seem to be very proud of what they are doing. So let us go now, having said that that is what is happening, and I've identified who is the main player, and the super pharmacies, we know who they're talking about. Let us look a little bit at the meaning of brand versus generic, because what a research paper that was undertaken is, and I'm going to refer to that again, is that people still, there's a lingering view about generic drugs versus brand name drugs, and people continue. And in fact, the research people, let me get back to the history where I got the data from, right? So this report that was given, actually it was not a report, it was a research paper that said that when they conducted their research, and that's very recently, as far as I can recall, when they conducted this research, they found that if they asked persons brand against generic, they said brand. And many of them didn't even know what a generic drug was. So that was part of the problem. They didn't even know what a generic brand drug is. They weren't clear, and I'm sure they weren't uneducated people that they spoke to. So there was a study, Impact of Chronic Disease Assistance Program on the retail sector, a retail retrospective study. And this was carried out, I don't have the date right here, from the National Library of Medicine. And what they showed is that you found that a lot of people, I think this was not it, they found that a lot of people, when you asked them, because it was done in a Trinidad setting, and they talk about people in Northwest Trinidad, and they said that 75% of them, or very high number of them, would stay with brand name because they were suspicious over using generic drugs. So what is the issue with generic drugs as opposed to brand name drugs? Well, when you develop a product, pharmaceutical or especially a prescription product, a lot of money is spent by the pharmaceutical company. Research, development, marketing, FDA approval is billions of dollars perhaps a day in things. So what they're allowed to do is they're given a protection by having intellectual property patent over that. But it can't be forever because you also have to balance that against your right of free trade. So it is given a certain lifespan. And once that lifespan comes to an end, then the generic market offering the same product, not under the same name because they're not brand name, offering it. And the key to it is that the product must have the same active ingredients. The concern as has been shown is that sometimes these generic drugs had the bad reputation of either having none of the active ingredient or not enough. But what happened, and truly they spoke about, I mean, Rahman, they did speak about the fact that it mostly came from India, where that issue came, and this suitcase trade. But they have said that that has been corrected because the pressure was put on India from the FDA, from WHO, about maintaining the efficacy, as you told me last night.
Well, not only that, at some point, your customers, if they can't trust the product, they'll stop buying from you. So you have to fix that in the long run.
Right. So that is what the difference is. It's not that it's any, in fact, when I was doing my research, 90%, someone had told me that I didn't believe them, so I went up on my own, and they said 90% of the pharmaceutical drugs that are dispensed are, in the United States of America, are generic, because they maintain very high standards, and I guess they look for the active ingredient and whether the active ingredient is up to mark in terms of equivalent or the bioequivalent of the brand name drug. However, having said all of that, so why are we where we are now? So I put the blame to a large extent on the foot of the government, or the former government, and I hope that this current government is going to do something about it, because yes, the pharmacy board does suffer, but in a way, you could see shown, if the price of our wholesale goods go up, and they have a markup of 35%, obviously their profit is going to increase. I'm not saying they're motivated by that, because they've spoken out very, very strongly about the monopoly and the fact that it's squeezing out competition for them.
Now, one of the questions I have, and I think there are some explanations already out there as to why this is not affecting what you're saying. Of course, COVID would have had its own international inflation on the price of drugs. Right now, Donald Trump is going on about the price of certain drugs being higher in America than in other parts of the world. But a lot of what he's speaking about is pharmaceuticals. And the two examples you mentioned, prescription drugs. The two examples you mentioned, just pharmacy products, are not necessarily prescription drugs in Panadol and Emergen-C. So as much as we're talking about pharmaceuticals, it's not just limited to prescription drugs. And to some extent, you're right. If it's the case that it's completely just international inflation, why can't you just easily show us, not just say with like a quick sentence, oh no, don't worry about it because this, but show us that it's that. And the fact that potentially they can't, or they're kind of speaking around it a little bit, makes you wonder, okay, what is it that they're not fully trying to talk about in this situation?
Yeah, I think what it is, it's understandable. Their back is against the wall. So they're using the fact that the CET, the Common External Tariff Protection, that they enjoyed, the not having to pay that, allowed the drugs coming in from abroad to be cheaper. But that was removed. But the pharmacy board, as I said, that's not even a quarter of the reason. They're using that. So we have to be mindful of the fact that if your back is up against the wall and the pharmacy board is coming out very strongly and saying, listen, you have to regulate that, and we have called on the government time and time again to regulate the wholesale and distribution sector. And they have failed to do that. And that is the core, because then we will really find out what it is. And I think the pharmacy board is pretty clear that you could talk about CET, all of what you want to talk about, but the reality is that you are able, from week to week. They gave an example with the Panadol. He said, they come in 1 week, they're telling me is this, I gave you the example, 1 week is this, next week is that. I am pretty confident that if the government of the past, and I hope the government of the day, looks and sees what they are paying, and you have to really drill down on that because I really have a lack of confidence. Drill down on what they're paying on the wholesale. What is their markup? What is their markup?
Also, American concerns are, I believe, with brand name drugs that are currently under patent, but part of what you're speaking about is generic, which by design are not supposed to have these high-end costs that they have to meet, right? So they're supposed to be cheaper. So again, when you're speaking about things like Panadol prices going up week to week, it kind of, you know, all right, if you say there's an explanation for it, then do more than just give us a sentence, like really show us the data.
They feel pressure because they have said, that using the and I'm going to come to that point, and then finally dealing with who I think is responsible, and it falls in the hands of the former government, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Trade. You see, because, you know, there's other ways to not, you know, do anything, do something by doing nothing. Other ways to ignore. The Pharmacy Board has said they've called for the government's intervention on the wholesale and distribution sector. They've called for it and nothing has been done. So what you need to know and what you, the consumers, you are the one, because listen, there are many people who are living much longer lives, but in living longer lives, what's keeping you alive as a lot of this medication that they have, advancements in medication that has allowed you to have a certain quality of life. But if you are, your pension is not inflation indexed, and if you're living on a fixed income, that fixed income, as you get older and you are required to take cardiovascular, high blood pressure, diabetes, and that becomes, it is you to be able to afford that. I know you could tell me CDAP, but they're also in the CDAP business. And I'm going to come back to the point I was going to make and then finish with the Fair Trading Act.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was saying that in America, you know why they could do 90%? Because FDA is very, very rigid and very, you know, they maintain a standard, and WHO, you have to pass the WHO standard, and that is that you must meet what makes the medication effective. Everything else could be fancy and so on, but that is the key. And they are going to enforce it. You're going to tell me Walmart, which has a huge, they are major dispensers of generic prescription drugs. You're going to tell me that they're going to take the chance of being shut down? They're one of the major, all these pharmacies, these huge pharmacies in America, they are regulated, right? They are regulated, so it comes back to the point how the rich keep getting richer and who is paying the price. It's everybody in this country who gets asthma, who has to take an antibiotic, who has to take high blood pressure, who has to take cardiovascular medication, who has to take diabetes, who has to take medication for pressure. Everybody's appetite, and you can say CDAP. I have the list. I didn't bring it. Yes, I did bring it with me actually, because someone gave it to me. And I'm not going to call the brand names, but there are some major brand names that people spend nearly $1,000 a month to get that brand name, and it's not on the CDAP list. Okay? There are many things. Two things I was told. One, a lot of things that people prefer to take because they are true, tried, and tested. And you're talking about your life, you know. You're talking about your life, right? So you're not going to mess around with that. Okay? So that's one thing. And then what I've been told by doctors, that they say when they go to get it in the pharmacy, will tell them, but we don't have any more. We run out of it. So, you know, don't buy it on the CDAP. There are all kinds of machinations. So let's say I start to say the government is the Ministry of Health and then the Ministry of Trade. Ministry of Health, because Kariri, I went and looked it up, I couldn't believe it. Kariri, go on the website, you will find it yourself. Do not take my word for it. Go on the website. Kariri says they are fully owned by the government, and the reason they do not have a lab testing facility in order to test whether these generic drugs that are put on the market have the active ingredient as a generic drug and that they can be put on the market, the government has failed to give them. In fact, some of them said they refuse, but you have to think it's true. They have been refusing to give them. I looked it up, and Kariri has gone on record and say, for years we are asking for the lab testing facility to test these generic drugs. Who is benefiting from that? You have to ask yourself, right? So that is one thing. The government has failed. Why have you failed to do that? Jamaica has a facility called CARFA, And they have testing facilities since 2013, and they will offer their facilities to the Caribbean region, but you have to make the request. And the fact that there are so many drugs that have failed to get registration, this is one of their complaints. And you see, to get registration, according to the board, it takes 5 years. Some of them getting it right. They own one sector owns 117 of the 167 registered drugs in this country. Okay? So they have passed whatever requirement for a generic drug. So why won't you let Kariri start doing its work? The other thing that I found out was, okay, is the registration taking so long? And, you know, there was a comment that Vyal Singh had to defend when he was accused of putting doubt in people's minds about reliance on generic drugs in 2025. Yes, there was a time for sure, but you know, definitely was a time for that. And in fact, the research that was done supports the fact that people will go and spend their money on a brand name drug which costed them 20 times more than the version, the generic version, because who has failed to do that? Who has failed to address that? Why haven't you done the Kariri? Why don't you speak out and have things about it? Don't tell me you do it every now and again. The fact that there's so many people who still will not take generic drugs, who is benefiting from that? And then we come to the Fair Trading Commission, which is a disgrace. A disgrace, in my view. It comes under the Ministry of Trade. The Fair Trading Commission in this country, when they were approached about why don't they take action against those who have a monopoly, because if you look, I'm going to give you these sections so you can look at it yourself. Starting with section 7, the powers of section 5. When they were approached, said they had not gotten any reports, any evidence. You don't have to wait. Don't you know that? You know that, because it says so. It says in 5.1, the functions of the commissions are to carry out subject to section 9 on its own initiative. You hear that word? On its own initiative. Or at the request of any interested person, investigations, advising the minister, which would be the Minister of Trade, investigating on its own initiative, and so on and so on. And then you go to section investigation, general powers. For the purpose of discharging its functions under section 5, the commission may take an application to the court for the determination of a contravention of this act. Section 7 talks about investigation of complaints, again in pursuance of its function under section 5.1a. The commission may investigate the affairs of business if it's of the consideration of a complaint from any person that the business is acting in contravention of the act on its own initiative, having regard to facts available to it, like they don't see the facts or something. The powers of the investigation require production of documents, require any documents, search and all of that. And section 41 is the most powerful section, what they can do, and they are not doing anything. They're saying that they're waiting on a report. But you're waiting on anything for? It's so obvious what's going on. Section 44, if you look at section 40, which deals with the powers of the court. They can apply the court to prohibit or restrict the transfer of shares, terminate an agreement or practice, prohibit the acquisition of assets of one company to another company, require a company to divest specified assets. You see how much power they have? And what they're doing? Not one thing. Not one thing. That's what they are. A waste of time. But guess what? Jamaica not. You see the same Augustine talk about? Yeah, they're in all the countries. They're in St. Lucia, they're in Suriname, they're in everywhere, buying up everything. Barbados, they're all over the place, right? Watch and see. Keep burying your head in the sand. Keep burying your head in the sand. So what it said is, what I was looking at, Jamaica case, let me find it. I want to read it out because Jamaica does not allow that. Jamaica article in June 20, that's just last month. That was just last month this article appeared. You see now they're telling me the page unavailable, but I had the page. Let me see. No, it's true.
Sometimes it's a momentary hiccup.
Yeah, but it happened to me at home. It happened to me at home.
Sometimes
no, it happened to me, but I want to read it out before you call in somebody because I want to see how it is Jamaica Fair Trading thing took action against these people. I had the article. I found it. First of all, they tell me error and all kind of foolishness, but I have it in my article, so I wrote it down in my article before I got these things started coming up. So let me tell you what they did. This is Jamaica Gleaner. It's not Karen Teixeira, this is Jamaica Gleaner. It said that in Jamaica, our Fair Trading Commission can't seem to act. But when they were in Jamaica, let me see, Jamaica provides a very recent instance of the Jamaica Fair Trading Commission acting against the Agostini Group, operating a distribution, wholesale, and retail pharmaceutical enterprise in Jamaica. In June 2025, Jamaica Gleaner reported that Massey Distribution Jamaica Limited, which they own too, in partnership with the Agostini Group, were under a second phase review by the Jamaica Fair Trade Commission. The articles further stated that in 2023, Agostini secured a Jamaica $2.8 billion loan to acquire Medigrace, another pharmaceutical distributor supplying a wide range of pharmaceutical products. By March 2025, Agostini, this is their separate, reported 4.2 billion TT in revenue, with TT 1 billion from pharmaceuticals, noting a double-digit business growth, while competition faced stagnant or declining sales due to price increases and competition. So owing 40% is not the issue. Owing is the extent that you push out other competitors. You make it difficult, that's in the legislation. And if you can't see that that is what is happening in this country, and this is not about buying a car, but you who are living on a fixed income cannot get it because this government, the former government, with the rich getting richer, through their various ministries, not only stood by and said nothing, but had to facilitate it because they had to grant licenses, and they had to do something about career, which they refused to do. They had to do something about the issue about this perception that generic is not as good as brand name, and they stayed silent. And you, not anybody else, you and all of us are paying the price of that.
If rich get richer because of innovation and taking risks and bringing out new products and new business models and stuff like that, and basically just being good business people, to some extent that's fine. But if rich gets richer because there's potentially monopolistic practices going on, exploitative practices going on.
Sean, I have to say it. I don't care. I may make myself very unpopular. But guess what? Nearly every single business that they took over was a success before they took it over.
Right, so that's what I'm saying.
So they never built it up.
If rich is getting richer,
had the money, they had plenty money to be able to acquire Smith Robinson, which was a success, Oscar Francis, which was a success, Agostini, which was a success, go into the Jamaica market, take over, go Barbados, Barbados too.
So that's what I'm saying.
So what did they achieve?
If
just monopoly, that's what they are.
If politicians think rich getting richer by monopolistic practices or potentially exploitative practices, that's not going to benefit the rest of society. That's not going to trickle down.
But who is it benefiting?
That's going to
Who does it benefit? Come on, it's not right. Listen, the car is bad enough. I thought, what are you using the car?
No, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing. I think it's bad enough Karen is sounding the alarm bells over something as important as pharmaceuticals and even if it's generic drugs, right? But then even for mundane things like cars and clothes and snack food and whatever, at some point it could potentially, if it goes too far, it could be a detriment to the economy, to the society, and to the country. I'm just saying, because
absolutely. But you know what? We talked about this. We talked about this yesterday, and I was so, my view is really. What, you have something on the line?
Yeah, we do have someone.
Okay, take your person on the line.
We'll take call. I'll call her. Good morning. You're on the air. Hopefully, you're still there.
Yeah, I am still there, and I am also passionate on this topic, just like Karen. Good morning to Sean, and good morning to the former finance minister. Karen, you are right with pharmaceutical, and I will give you a history, my own experience with one particular wholesale, and I'm going to say SMR in Sawa. I am a dependency on insulin. 8 years ago, 7 years ago, there was a major issue for people who spending a little more extra to get the pens with insulin will realize there is a particular needle. And that needle was staying in one's stomach. As you inject yourself and you're going to pull it back out, it stays. It stayed several times in my stomach, but I was vigilant. And I went about 15 times to that supplier in Sawa and said, look, there is a problem with these needles. You're causing problems with people who will not think it is. And after approaching them several times, I got up 3 o'clock in the morning and I decided to write the manufacturer, British company, on the performance of that. They call it the pen-tip needles. 1 month after, I did not get a reply because I enter quality systems and I know how to approach it. I didn't get a reply and I sent another email. I said, what has happened with it? They came back to me and said, yes, there is a problem. They said, based on my intervention, they redesigned the pen tip. I went and I showed that company. I said, this is how you all are treating small fries and customers that come directly to you all. You all paid no attention. And that's where I'm getting to about monopoly, how they will treat customers, distributors with cans courtesy, with respect to things. Let me tell you, three politicians I got involved into this to try to raise it in Parliament of this issue. One was I won't want to call him in, he was a waste of time. But the current Minister of Health and the current Prime Minister responded, and that is a long time ago. They might have forgotten about it. I have the whole document. I could make it available to everybody. And I believe they were concerned. They actually had a conference call with me, the current Minister of Health. And I had to tell him, I said, look, I don't want you to tell me I could handle my story. It have a lot of people who are suffering. See what you all could do with it. I'm going with that. Now, the second issue I want to raise is this issue with the pharmacy board where they stop people from getting drugs directly from the distributor because there is a 30% difference in prices. And recently I was forced. All of a sudden, I sent my usual upfront email with my requirements, and they've come back 7 o'clock in the morning. Hey, we can't do that. The pharmacy board has stopped it. I am like a fish out of water because insulin, you have to make sure you carry it properly and things like that. So I had to call a couple of doctors and say, give me the, because I was using both of them, right? The brand and the generic. And when I was forced to get the generic, the price difference is 100%. Crestor and Rotosilvating, the price is different. Cosa and L'Occitane. So all the time I was using, most of it was generic, and I had to switch, and I said, oh, what the hell? It could save you, but then again, you have to have conscious and, how should I say, the medical support you have. Because I suspect there is some sort of an arrangement. You buy the brand and you get something down the road. That is how America do it, because they will see you. So what I'm hoping that people understand, the generic will work. The good, honest doctors with integrity will tell you it will work, and it will work. You understand? I question my integrity, and it works. And my own experience, monopoly and companies, monopoly, we have to manage them properly because they treat customers, once you're small, they treat you with contempt and they don't look after your thing. So, Karen, excellent. Thanks for bringing up the topic. And a lot of people who depend, because your health is the most important thing, despite everything. If you don't have proper health and you're not being put down to the right go-to track, your whole family is going to suffer. And I'm hoping that by the discussion, the government understand how many of them like me, some of them don't have a big mouth like me and who might not be able to go around to the big boys and get things. But so be it. I go on. Thanks for the opportunity for this morning.
So you know what I'm going to challenge you with? What I'm going to challenge you, I'm going to go back to your example that you used. Now, is that company, I don't want to call the name of the company because I'm really not, that's not my focus, but is that company from whom, pharmacy that you were buying it from, are they the wholesalers and retailers? Because that's where the problem lies, you see. Because if the wholesalers and retailers are consistently bringing in things and they have control because they have the license to bring it in, then that's the one to blame. What looks immediately in your range, your shooting range, is, so to speak, is the pharmacy, but it really goes back to the wholesaler. The second thing I want to say is that normally I will just, this is something that, why aren't the NGOs speaking out? Why aren't there so many people living over the age of 60 in this country who are living on small pensions, can't even afford it? Why are they not putting pressure? And I think this government, because the person I quoted in 2024, I didn't want to say that, but because he was still, no matter if he was a UNC meeting, he was still the president of this association, so I think he spoke in that thing. But it gives you an indication that there is buy-in on this government's part. So why is not something done under the Fair Trading Commission? Because every indication is that the way in which a monopoly control operates is it keeps others out of the market, and that's what they are saying. I mean, what other proof does that commission need? This country is so, I mean, it really makes you feel, a sense of futility in dealing with things. But you have the power, and it doesn't mean, why don't people start an online petition? I would certainly support it, because the government has to do something about a situation that is dealing with your life and your death, and that you need to be having more drugs on the generic listing, need the Kariri to be funded to be able to do the testing to make sure that they are good drugs, and somehow label it Kariri tested, so people have the confidence that that's where the generic drug is coming from. And we need to break this stranglehold that apparently is in this country in relation to persons who are in control of our health and our life in this country. And it cannot be right. It cannot be right. So I am asking people, if you feel that strongly about it, if you don't feel that strongly, well, go ahead. But if you feel that strongly, I'm willing to come out and make myself more of a pariah than I really may be for some people. But it's because it's I don't feel I can sit down and stay quiet. So I have given you everything that I've given you, unless they can defend themselves not in any roundabout, circumlocucious kind of way and prevaricating, distract people. Not stupid anymore, They want you to answer them straight. How much? How much? How much? How it thing. We want some straight answers. And the Trading Commission is do like Jamaica, do something about it. What you want to say?
So at a time when for years now, long-form content on podcasts where people will have in-depth conversations are becoming more and more the norm. When you have these throwaway replies by whatever public official, like a 2-sentence response that barely explains anything. Listen, for news and you're never going to get an hour and a half just on one minor part of a topic. But the point is, as you said, people are smarter. People are more willing to engage with more detailed information. And a lack of details is more and more becoming a red flag.
Exactly.
Because when you don't have details, then it's very easy, that's not transparent at all.
Exactly.
And politicians, I think the previous administration ran into that brick wall.
Definitely have to be part of it.
I'm warning the current administration, don't make those same mistakes now. Let's not do that.
We don't want you to do the word warn. We want to encourage you to do.
Encourage, yes.
Yeah, because I don't think they're against it. But not in this thing.
There's something about our local politicians. I've seen this starting with the TPP. No, they kind of come to the mean, right? They come back to the baseline for whatever reason. They say we're going to be different, but then every now and then they make similar mistakes. And you're like, why do that?
Like Colin, I have to defend her, by the way. This has nothing to do with the topic, but I had to say because someone raised it with me. And I'm not saying anything that the Prime Minister said at a Monday evening meeting about the Law Association. There's value in what she said. But I have to defend Lynette Seabrand Sweet. She did not take the senior counsel designation because she did not agree, as did Israel Khan, who already had it, but she would not take it because she felt, as far as I'm aware, I don't know if she did it since then, but I know she hadn't because she did not agree with the process for the appointment of senior counsel. So that's not fair to her.
So we have a couple callers waiting. We have one call on WhatsApp. We'll take the call. Good morning, caller. You on there?
Good morning, Sean. Good morning to Mrs. Nunes Teixeira. In looking at the pharmaceutical industry, can you all hear me?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah. The pharmaceutical industry is a scam, right? In the United States, the pharmaceutical industry, big pharma, is a scam. So you have to follow the money, you have to follow the process. Even the regulatory framework in the US is designed to suit big pharma. Yeah, right? So you make a law to suit yourself and to suit big business. The active ingredients that not in some of the generic brands, the active ingredients that the external labs don't want to put in. Aluminium, etc., into the pharmaceuticals. You have labs in India making these generic drugs. Those guys in India, in terms of it, you have a part of the population in India managing the diabetes through drugs, and another part of the population doing it in the homeopathic approach. They don't want the active ingredient, in inverted commas, in those drugs. And the drugs sell cheaper. Now, the same drugs that are available in the United States, right, are available in Canada at a cheaper rate. 100%, half the price, right? Half the price. 45,000 people die every year in the US because they cannot afford the drugs. So that is where the scam starts. So 45 people dying, the timber industry constructing 45,000 coffins every year, based on people who cannot afford the drugs. People cross the border, buy insulin for $10 and $16 a dose, and bring it back over to the US and use it. Because in the US, they're sharing the dosages because of cost. It's a big scam. In Trinidad, the pharmaceutical industry in Trinidad realized that we in Trinidad have a lax regulatory framework. Exactly. So they'll buy up. As Mrs. Nunes Teixeira said, the Agostini bought companies that was nailed to the ground. Those companies that were nailed to the ground were doing profit. It's just that their shareholders want to sell, they get a good price for their shares and they sell. That is how business is in Trinidad, right? And the fellas in Trinidad copying from the US. Is a copy. They're copying from the US, right? You remember the labs were open to manufacture the COVID drugs in India and in Bangladesh. Top of the line labs, right? During COVID, the suppliers of the raw material in Europe say, no, let's do that. We're doing it. So you had a lot of European drug makers make a killing off of COVID drugs because it's a free market. FDA approved certain cereals to sell on the shelves of the United States. Those cereals cannot sell in the US because of the ingredients. They cannot sell in Europe because the things that are in those cereals that the FDA approve is slow poison in other countries. So you had to see exactly is an international scam, is a worldwide scam with food and drugs, and that is where we are. We have to put in our regulatory framework with regard to managing the generic and the brand name and so on. And the brand name versus generic is just a marketing drift. It's a marketing drift. If I could afford a generic, I'll buy it because I know what is not in generic. Somebody else could afford the brand name, they'll buy it because they could afford the brand name. Right? And that is these decisions we make in terms of knowledge, information, culture, scam. So it has to be a scam. I didn't know until recently, well, I now know, that a lot of drugs are being made from petrochemical products, right? They're making money in drugs based on petrochemical products. Follow the money, back to the Rockefellers. You understand? So we learn whatever scam we know, we learn it from the North and we learn it from the West, right? So you all have a good day.
Thank you, caller. We have another call.
I want to address what he said, if I could remember.
Right, because we have to take the next call.
Yeah, of course.
All right. Caller, good morning. Are you with us?
Hi, good morning, Mr. Teixeira and Mr. Small.
Morning, Mr. Diego Martin. It's been a while.
Yes. Well, I just want to give my hats off again to Mr. Teixeira for bringing up this topic. She's usually on point and real.
Oh, no. We might have lost, I think we lost the call. Caller, you can call back in right? If my memory is correct, this has happened with your connection every now and then. We lost the call, so Karen, I don't know if you
Okay, very quickly. Everything the gentleman said is on point. Okay, be back, San Fernando.
Okay, we'll take San Fernando on the line. Good morning, caller, you're on here.
Good morning, Sean. Good
Morning.
Karen. Well, first let me say something that you talked about earlier, Sean, about the pre-larceny and the police. I could talk about it. I have a friend who is a farmer in Beach, and they raided his avocado field at 3 o'clock in the day.
Wow.
And he went to the police, and they asked him, "You saw the people on them?" Because he was in another part of his garden. No, but when he came out, he saw that somebody went in and picked a lot of his avocados. He said, "Well, if you didn't see them, we can't do anything." He went higher up the street, went to a couple of people who had cameras, and got the footage of the vehicle coming down, the vehicle going back out, the times the vehicle came in. You actually saw the back of the vehicles with avocados.
Yeah.
And up to today, the police still ain't come to investigate.
Yeah, well, to me, my opinion of that is those officers lazy. I'm just going to say it, like straight out lazy. Or
maybe they know the person.
Exactly.
See,
maybe
messing with the business.
Maybe they know the person and they may or may not have an incentive that we don't know what it is. We don't know what motivates them. But there may be linkages and stuff.
We don't know, huh?
No. In addition to that, so the confidence with pre-larceny and the police is out the window for a lot of farmers, and you always hear that guy from Central there, the goat farmer, always speaking about it. Khan is his name. You know, Karen, beautiful. I hope to read that article when you publish it.
Hopefully
now, you know that. As far as I'm concerned, in addition to that Fair Trade Commission of Trinidad and Tobago, you know there's a CARICOM Fair Trade Commission as well. And I am wondering if there is, because when all this stuff you spoke about Jamaica, is our Fair Trade Commission, do they liaise with the Caribbean Fair Trade Commission to know what's happening in the other part of CARICOM to collaborate? Something has to be wrong. I'm not sure if Mr. Narayan Singh is still there, who is the executive director there. I'm not sure if he's still there, but it seems as if them and the Ministry of Trade seems to be impotent in seeing about in trying to arrest this situation. And let me give you just like how Diego Martin gave you this experience. My dad had I don't see this public prostate cancer for many years, and because of the doctors, I used to use a particular drug for him, which prolonged his life, and a good life at that, until he passed away. And he actually didn't pass away from a Digicel lung, and he hit his head. Now, I used to go to the pharmacy when they first gave me the prescription, I went to the pharmacy to get it. They would not give it to me the same day. They would always tell me come back another day. And I went to a couple of pharmacies, and I realized all of them pricing was the same. So on one occasion, I was paying it. On one occasion, the doctor asked me, how much? What's the cost of this drug that you're prescribing to you? And I told him that it's an injection. But the size of the tube is big as a knob on your finger. It was, and he would take that once every 3 months. It was $7,500.
Wow.
Every 3 months. Wow. Now so he said, that's the price? I said yes. I said they always tell me come back the next day. I'll actually leave the prescription and come back the next day with the bag, with the cold bag to put it in. You know, he sent me to one of the distributors. He said I'm giving you a prescription to go there. And when I went there, Karen, they said, this look at the prescription the doctor sent you? I said, yes. I paid $4,300 for the same drug. $4,300. So the pharmacy board, the pharmacies in this country are not totally innocent in this situation of price gouging in the market. They are not. And let me say this: you all realize they have more pharmacies and fast food outlets in Trinidad. Pharmacies all over the place. You could find a pharmacy within a mile of one another. And that is because it is a lucrative business for them.
Yeah.
It is a lucrative business. So I really think, thank God, Karen, you bring this up. And let me say to people who this affects, because it's affecting everybody. Go. If you don't want to write, your MP have a day every week. Your MP have an office day. Go by your MP and complain.
Yeah, but
go there and complain and force them to make some inroads into this. Have a good day. Thank you, Karen.
All right. I just want to say, and it answers the first speaker, or the person who spoke to. You see, talking, they say, no, I didn't hear that. No, he come and talk to me about something else. No. What we have to do, this is something we all need to get behind and to get the truth. Because I don't know exactly what it is, but I know there's some truth there. And you're right about the pharmacy book. I said that just now. I said if the wholesale is being controlled for major prescription drugs or over the counter, and they are controlling it, even though your market is 30-35%, obviously you're making more than you would have because of the wholesale price being increased. Okay? Okay, Diego Martin is back.
I just want to say, I know for a fact, at least with some companies that operate locally, they also have concerns about price gouging by retailers, doctors' offices, and stuff.
Yeah, but they are the victims of the wholesalers.
Yeah.
And the wholesalers are not regulated.
No, but I think what Sanfana was talking about was on top of the issues you have with the wholesalers, then you do have...
I'm going to tell you, you have to go to the source. Don't go... You know what people like you to do? They like you to go and get distracted and aim your gun and think. I'm not saying the pharmacies are nothing, but the real issue is with those people who control the wholesale and also only super pharmacies. They're making it both sides, and who is suffering? It's us.
Let's say the big pharmacies. Let's say the big pharmacies.
No, they call them the super pharmacies.
Oh, that's the term.
Yes, I use the term. I'm not using it like I careful.
Someone's trying way too hard on branding there. Let's go. We have Diego Martin back. Last call. We have a couple comments to get to, which will back up what one of the things you just said. But caller, good morning, caller. You're on here.
Yes,
you're back.
Sean and Mr. Sheriff. Yes, I was saying that I was grateful for you to bring that topic this morning. As usual, you always think of the public, and I admire that about you. Yes, I have one of those problems with that same thing. I had to get a blood thinner, and I had to take it every day, and I had to take 2 every day actually. And I went to the company. It took me $1,350 a box of Plate, and that means $2,700 every month I have to buy that, and that's one drug, and I take 3 different types of drugs. Then my doctor, if you have a good doctor like I have, and honest with you, they will tell you exactly the correct thing to do. And then she told me, she said, Mr. Joseph, let me tell you something. This drug you're taking there, there's a generic drug. That is the exact same thing of it. And it's going to work for you. And I'm going to recommend you go buy this people and get it. And I went and get this thing. Well, I found out the price of this thing. It was $600 and something per box. So that was $1,200. So I saved almost $1,500 a month on those 2 boxes. And the drug works perfectly. I'm very good taking it, and I have no problems. So these generic drugs, a lot of them are very good. And once a doctor can give you advice, you take that advice and go with it, and forget about those expensive drugs. When I ask them for a discount at that certain company there, you know what they tell me? You look at discounts at small people like you all, the big companies around. So, okay, thank you. So that's it. And I recommend anybody to listen to their doctors. Will advise you. Mostly I've got good doctors will advise you correctly.
I have good doctors over.
Yeah.
A lot of them doctors getting not your doctor, of course, not your doctor, but a lot of them are encouraged to promote the brand name. I know that as a fact, okay? I'm not say not in Trinidad. I don't know about Trinidad. But anyway, could you take your points? And I do want to finish with my point.
Quick.
Okay, Mr.
Yeah,
Mann.
because we're out of time. I have comments. I have to.
Okay.
People
What I want to say is, I want us to please focus on the pharmaceutical. And the reason is that we, the end consumer, are the ones that are affected. Unless you're working for plenty money, paying thousands of dollars every month for brand name drugs is to keep you alive or to keep your quality of life as anything, it's affecting all of us. Whether you need to get an antibiotic, all of us at some time have taken antibiotics, okay? So what I am saying to you, if anything came out of this program, over which I feel very passionately about, it is you, the people of this country, hold the power. Not going and talk to somebody and telling somebody. I use this platform, thank God, to WSN. They have never ever said to me, do not talk about a topic. They have never told me that. What I do, though, is make sure that I back up what I'm saying with data. So if you get mad with me, I will point you to my source. But they do not tell me what to say. Unlike many other media houses, for different reasons, do not have the ability to do that. So I'm asking you, if you all care about yourself, if you care about us sliding, you know, you're going down a path and everybody putting their head in the sand. You know, many people put their head in the sand and they know when they woke up what they found, right? That's why you want, as lawyers, you might think the law is being strict, but you don't want to open that floodgate, right? And that floodgate busts open already. So I am saying to you, you have the power. Do not think you do not have the power. Let us start our online to put pressure on the government. I think this government will be more receptive. Oh God, you helped me out even yesterday too. Receptive to responding to Kariri, being able to test drugs so you don't have to rely on your doctor's word, but Kariri saying it, and also to put pressure that there's this monopoly that the Trading Commission in this country seems to not be able to enforce or suffering from some sort of inertia that in Jamaica does not, where they are operating, same Agostini operating in Jamaica, right? So put pressure, one, for the Trading Commission to get up and do its job, get up and look at why this monopoly is a thing, and let them do something about it. You have the power. So I'm calling on you finally, Sean, I am calling on you. I will take my part. I'm doing my part right now, partly, and I'm asking you, please stand up and be counted on this. Please stand up and be counted on this. Okay? That's my plea.
We have a comment, and I want to answer this. All the talk in this country doesn't change anything. And while, yes, to some extent it's true, if all we do is talk, well then that's what's going to happen. Here's the thing, and Karen brought up media, and I think media and medicine are two areas where business pressure does affect the output, does affect the product, can affect operations. And the thing is, you can't just write a legislation and ensure that everything will be ethical and you just forget it. You have to enforce it. You have to constantly put in diligent, ongoing, consistent effort in the enforcement, in the monitoring, right? Because things also, circumstances change and you might need to make adjustments, otherwise new loopholes are formed,
political
right?
Will, that's what you call it.
And political will comes from societal will, and societal will comes from what Karen just said. Everybody has to stand up and be counted on issues like this, because this is, again, she's making a very good point.
Mandela.
Once the floodgates open, it's very hard to put it back, the genie in the bottle. Let
us put our hold to what is going on in our country. We've got to say, I am not against anybody, you know. If they want to think I'm against them, I'll free. I am for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That's who I am for. Okay? That is what I am doing. And it is not right, because a lot of people can't speak out because they have skin in the game. They have cocoa in the rain.
The business pressure.
You're right, the business pressure. Them. I understand that. Interlocking, everybody, you know how much interlocking directorships we have in this country. You go and lose a job in one company, you go and go in another company. It's the same people who own it, you know. Which is why I told Sean.
That's one of the reasons why monopolies are bad.
Right. But not on its face of it, We have to go into why. And right. So I'm going to say this before Sean shuts me up. I am going to say that I told him that when I started looking at the pharmaceutical sector, I then said, but there are one group of persons in this country controlling nearly everything. Is that a threat to our democracy? Because does it make you shut up under the Constitution, freedom of expression, which is not an absolute right, it's defamation. So what you are going to ask yourself, if everything I have to get, that from everything is controlled by one small group in our society, is that consistent with a democracy, or is that consistent with a creeping dictatorship? So next week, I'm making lots of friends with doing this, but you know, I'm putting myself out because I love my country and I love you, although you may not always think so.
As I said, we are equal opportunity critics and we have no problem being equally universal pariahs, just saying. Right? Now, we have a last comment to get to before we close the show, and I don't really have a direct answer for this. Did you see Moody and Nambia, the man love Africa, so why did we keep the Afro-Trini out when Moody was here? It almost looked like we were embarrassed to show Afro-Trini culture sad. Now, I don't know.
Somebody asked me that too, you know.
Right. I can't
that.
answer directly to this because I don't even know what the details are on it.
Can I just say quickly, please? I'm on here, please. I just want to say.
You will give your opinion.
Okay, I'm giving an opinion. It's an opinion.
Right, because part of it is, it's not like we have hard statistics on this.
No.
It's a small sample size, yes.
It's not a bad one either, I hope. Right? Somebody did ask me, why they didn't give him Callaloo and stew chicken and that? I said the man was there for one day. You know, he was going to the BRICS conference, and you know they wanted him to understand what the Trini culture is about. I don't think when the Ghanaians came here, when we went Ghana, did anybody shut up and say Mr. and Mrs. Rowley and Dr. Rowley dancing in Ghana, and he came down here. So why we are against it? Modi has a lot to offer the country. Yes, there are issues. Yes, there are issues with every leader. But at the end of the day, he did do a good for the country. And bottom line, I think that the limited time he had, I think they made the right call to introduce him to our doubles and our East Indian cuisine. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Well, and people who are taking that like that, it's sounding a little racist to me.
I think also we need to understand, as someone that has a little bit of experience in tourism, not every foreign visitor just wants to dive headlong into things that they've never had before.
Exactly.
Right? Sometimes you have to bridge their experience to your culture.
And you want to show it off too.
And you need, you can't just dive headfirst and say, hey, Callaloo, here. You know, and I say that because
if he was there for another day,
it happens with the tourists.
We give him that.
Not all local cuisine is just an automatic hit with foreign tourists, right? It's not that simple. It's not just they all want to dive headlong.
It was a good thing.
And doubles is a very good and safe, not just safe, but it's also a high quality local product.
You know what too? For my cooking a lot of Indian food, I'm getting an authentic Indian book. We have what we call Trini Indian food, you know. Don't get around, and whether they have
one source apparently attributed.
A lot of things that
one source attributed to the colonizers enjoying Indian cuisine, and this is the easy version of it.
Our version.
Right? Which we then adopted because we were a colony and so on.
And do you know what it's in England now? You know what's their national dish? Tikka. Chicken tikka.
Chicken tikka masala.
And the come with fish and chips and newspaper and vinegar.
It got by fish and chips. At least not in London.
So get with the program.
Anyway, folks, I want to thank the comments. I want to thank all the callers, all of the input on this issue. This is one of those things where, like I said, this is because there's more to this. There's more to this, but as Karen points out, you have the wholesale level at the top, then you have the various individual small pharmacies and all of the lack of regulations there. But monopolies, next week, she promised, unless something comes up.
That's true.
Unless something comes up, fingers crossed, nothing comes up, because I think it would be good to keep the momentum rolling on that topic. We implied it and we teased it. Monopolies in our economy, they're not really helpful right now, and they could have long-term implications. That too.
That's what it is.
There was some, just to close on that, there was something in the news today.
What?
Right? A certain media house or two may have had to fold up. The business pressures are real on the media industry, and now we have to ask, to what extent is our democracy stronger for it or weaker for it?
TAG had to fold up the Carib.
I mean, that is, But I'm talking about a news media house.
Okay.
It has closed down
So
today.
you're not saying beer and Stargan?
No, I think the fourth estate is more important to democracy than alcohol, Karen.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, then.
Although I think a lot of the population will disagree with me.
But the Prime Minister is now saying 21 years and 25. Someone like Trump, though.
I
Someone
need
like
to.
Trump. That making too much
I'll
sense.
take a page out of your book. Let's see how you enforce that in this
You
culture.
have to go in people home.
Stay safe. Remember your allegiance to the Republic and to each other. Never forget, it's nice to be nice, right? Even when the pharmacist you think they might be mistreating you. Don't take it out on the poor young man or young lady getting your drugs, right? Think about the big business and blame them, right? Legal drugs. And stay safe. Hopefully we'll see each other tomorrow. Bye-bye.
WESN.
Get ready for the biggest business-to-business event of the year. The Trade and Investment Convention happening on July 17th to 19th at the Centre of Excellence in the Koya. Doors open from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. on business days and 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Consumer Day. Dress code in effect for business days. Park and ride available from Constantine Park and UETGR North Car Park all days and NAMDevco on the 17th and 19th. Sponsored by the Ministry of Trade, Investment and Tourism, Exim Bank, Balroop Group and Bmobile Business.
My name is Dr. Stephen Carroll, the CEO at Community Hospital of Seventh-day Adventist.